ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم البعث. So inshallah, I would like to welcome everybody to our Fiqh session for the month of September. It's been, I think we have an hiatus of about 2 months. So alhamdulillah, it's good to be back. And today, inshallah, we have a very interesting topic, a topic which is something that a lot of us are either not fully aware of it, or have maybe some limited information on this. How, as a person, stock market investment is something really that I have little or no knowledge about it, especially from Islamic point of view. Because of that, I try to stay away from it. Alhamdulillah, so we realize this is probably not the best approach. There are halal means of growing wealth, inshallah. And for this, we have an agenda packed today. So I'll run through the agenda, inshallah, before I hand over to Brother Michelle, who's going to be our first moderator, inshallah. So just the highlights of today's program. We'll be starting, inshallah. I'll hand over right after this introduction of the program to Brother Michelle. We have an opening dua by our Imam, Dr. Abdurrahman Adisokan, inshallah. After which we have an opening Quran recitation by Hafiz Farid Salman. And then we have our first speaker, Brother Salman Adidokun, speak for about 30 minutes. Then we'll have a Q&A after that. Then inshallah we'll transition to the next session that will be hosted by Sister Ganiat Habib. And for that, we have Quran recitation that will be done by Sister Asiya Muhib. And then we will have our speaker, second speaker, come in, inshallah, at around 11, in person of Dr. Abdul Latif Bello. Again, the same thing, you speak for 30 minutes. We have question and answers after that. We transition to the third session to be hosted by Sister Kafayat Aminu and Quran recitation by Nusayba Abdul Wahab, inshallah. And then we will now have the final speaker for the day in person of Mr. Munib Salam. And we will then, inshallah, end it with the closing dua. So without any further ado, inshallah, I would like to now hand over the mantle to our able brother, Michelle Sulaiman. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On behalf of the Imam, our Amir, Dr. Abdurrahman Adishakan, I welcome all of us, those that are joining and those that are still coming to this special edition of the Fiqh program, talking about growing our wealth in an halal way. Right, as part of our tradition, we will welcome our Imam to give us the opening remarks shortly. And after that, we're going to have our Hafiz Paris Salman to give us the recitation of the Holy Quran before we welcome our guest speaker, who I will then introduce to give us his speech. Imam, please go ahead and give us your opening keynote address. Thank you, sir.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'a bi ihsan ila yawmiddin. We pray to Almighty Allah to accept this effort from us as act of ibadah. And as we are praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for us to achieve the best in this world and in the best of the akhirah. One of ways to achieve the best of this world is to learn how to achieve it. So far, it is not haram. It is not haram for Muslims to be rich. It is not haram for Muslims to achieve whatever they aim to achieve in this life. Since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran, in Surah Al-Qasas, where it says, وَابْتَغِي فِيمَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ ولا تنس نصيبك من الدنيا وأحسن كما أحسن الله إليك ولا تبغ الفساد في الأرض إن الله لا يحب المفسدين. Allah says, وَابْتَغِي فِيمَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ. Use whatever Allah bless you with in this world to achieve the best of the akhirah. وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. And don't ever overlook your own love for enjoyment of this world. Whatever you are entitled to, achieve it in the right way. And Allah says, وَلَا تَبْغِ الْفَسَادَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. The only condition is that you have to make sure that you are not achieving anything in a corrupt way. And Allah says, وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ. Be nice, be good, be kind as Allah has been kind to you by providing for you the means to achieve in this world. Allah says, He does not like Allah of those that are corrupt. We pray to Almighty Allah to make it easy for us. We pray to Allah to continue to bless each and every one of us and to give us the best of this world and the best of Akhirah. Allahumma inna abiduk, banu abidik, banu imaik, nawasina biyadik, ماض فينا حكمك عادل فينا قضاؤك اللهم إنا نسألك بكل اسم هو لك سميت به نفسك أو أنزلته في كتابك أو علمته أحدا من خلقك أو استأثرت به في علم الغيب عندك أن تجعل القرآن العظيم ربيع قلوبنا ونور صدورنا وجلاء أحزاننا وذهاب همومنا وغمومنا وسائقنا إلى جناتك جنات النعيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم اكفنا بحلالك عن حرامك واغننا بفضلك عما سواك. اللهم إنا نسألك وأنا نشهد بأنك أنت الله الذي لا إله إلا أنت الأحد الصمد الذي لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم.
Ameen, Ameen, Ameen. Thanks, Dr. Adeshokon, for that beautiful reminder and for the prayers. So before I call on Hafiz Farid Salman to give us the Quran recitation, I want to appeal to all of us here. This is a very, very important topic that the ISC has put together by popular demand. So if you look at the screen, if your friend is not here, call your friend, send a message to your friend. If your husband is not listening, tell your husband to come and join you or tell your husband to join. If your wife is not part of this conversation, this is going to be a family conversation, this is going to be a community conversation, invite your husband. If your daughter or your son or your children are not part of this, please go ahead and invite someone to join, because we don't want you to miss out of this, to miss out from this conversation. Also, for those that have joined, please get a paper and get your pen ready to take notes. We just don't want people to join and listen. We want people to join, listen, and engage, take notes, and take action, because there will be action items at the end of this. So our elders, please join us. Committee of friends, please join us. Our senior sisters, please join us. Our youth, you are welcome to join us. Please do me a favor, send a message, invite a friend. If your friend is missing, if someone that you know that should be here is not here yet, the train is going, we are not going to wait. So, but we don't want people to miss out. I'll go ahead and invite Hafiz Farid Salman, a Chelsea fan, right? Someone that wants to be, that wants to have the career of his dad and the character of his mom in the future, inshallah. May Allah make it easy for him, right? He's going to be reading from the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, 275 to 281. Bismillah, Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الذين يأكلون الربا لا يقومون إلا كما يقوم الذي يتخبطه الشيطان من المس ذلك بأنهم قالوا إنما البيع مثل الربا وأحل الله البيع وحرم الربا فمن جاءه موعظة من ربه فانتهى فله ما سلف وأمره إلى الله ومن عاد فأولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون يمحق الله الربا ويربي الصدقات والله لا يحب كل كفار أثيم إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وأقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة لهم أجرهم عند ربهم ولا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وذروا ما بقي من الربا إن كنتم مؤمنين فإن لم تفعلوا فأذنوا بحرب من الله ورسوله وإن تبتم فلكم رؤوس أموالكم لا تظلمون ولا تظلمون وإن كان ذو عسرة فنظرة إلى ميسرة وأن تصدقوا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون واتقوا يوما ترجعون فيه إلى الله ثم توفى كل نفس ما كسبت وهم لا يظلمون الله العظيم. Now for the translation. But those who take interest will rise up on the day of resurrection like someone tormented by Satan's touch. That is because they say trade and interest are the same. But God has allowed trade and has forbidden interest. Whoever, on receiving God's warning, stops taking interest may keep his past gains. God will be his judge. But whoever goes back to interest will be an inhabitant of the fire, there to remain. God blights interest, but blesses charitable deeds with multiple increase. He does not love the ungrateful sinner. Those who believe, do good deeds, keep up the prayer, and pay the prescribed alms will have their reward with their Lord. No fear for them, nor will they grieve. O you who believe, beware of God. Give up any outstanding dues from interest if you are true believers. If you do not, then be warned of a war from God and his messenger. You shall have your capital if you repent, and without suffering loss or causing others to suffer loss. If the debtor is in difficulty, then delay things until matters become easier for him. Still, if you're to write it off as an act of charity, this will be better for you if you only knew. Beware of a day when you'll be returned to God. Every soul be paid in full for what it has earned, and no one will be wrong.
Thank you, Hafiz Farid Salman, for that beautiful recitation of the Quran and the interpretation in English. Right. I want to thank all of you. By the time Hafiz Farid started reading, and after I make the announcement, we've had about 25 people join in less than 5 minutes. So thanks to all of you that reach out to your friends, reach out to your colleagues, reach out to your children, your spouse to join, right? So please, as we go forward on this, please do the same. We want as many as possible people to join to benefit from the conversation we're going to be having today, because this is a very important topic, and the timing is also very, very perfect for this. There are a lot of people that have asked about, investment, about interest, about, making sure that we do things, we grow our wealth in another place, in another way. And that's why we invited our speaker here today, our brother Suleiman Adedokun, to be our guest. There is no coincidence that when we talk about wealth, right? There's no coincidence that when we talk about wealth, we talk about Suleiman. So Suleiman is hosting Suleiman here today because we're talking about wealth, right? Dr. Adishok has taught us a lot of lessons. We've listened to the tafsir of Suleiman, how rich he was, right? And how rich he was in a halal way. So I am going to quickly introduce Brother Suleiman to us here. I don't want the introduction to take too much time here. So I'm going to be sharing his bio with us quickly here. He is the managing director of Meristem Wealth Management Limited, right? He pioneered the establishment of this company, a wholly owned subsidiary of Meristem Securities, and currently manages the wealth management firm. He's a CFA chartered holder. Not too many people have that qualification, right? A lot of people are accountants, but not a lot of people are accountants and finance people. A member of the CFA Institute of Society of Nigeria, and a seasoned accountant with a wealth of experience spanning across the various sectors of the capital market. Suleiman started his career with Security Swaps Limited and later Nigerian Stockbrokers Limited, a subsidiary of Nal Bank, from where he joined Meristem Securities. For those who are not in the financial world, right, who are not in that same profession, it's always very difficult to find someone that combines the two, being a finance person and being an accountant, and he has combined the two, right? He holds degrees both in accounting, banking and finance. He's an associate member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, ICANN, Chartered Institute of Taxation, right, and Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers. So he has 3 layers of that, right? He's also authorized dealing clerk on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Brother Suleiman has attended several local and international trainings, including practical portfolio management for equities and bonds, Beaufort Institute of Business Training, South Africa, certificate in financial asset management and engineering. Wow, that's a lot. He also attended a general management program course, GMP 10 2011, at the prestigious Harvard Business School, USA. He's an alumnus of Harvard Business School. Brother Suleiman, without much ado, thanks for joining us here today, right? And one thing that I did not see in your bio, I want you to spend a minute. You are married, right? I'm assuming you are married, you have a wife, you have kids. Let's start with that. That's missing. I want our community to know you personally before you tell us what we're going to share with you. Married, how many kids? How many wives?
Alhamdulillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh.
I'm happy to be here, and briefly, as you requested, I would just say my name is Suleiman Adedokun, 50 years old, married with Kafila Adedokun, and I have 4 beautiful girls. Alhamdulillah, so that is briefly. I have 4 beautiful girls, and I'm married with Kafila Adedokun.
So you are Suleiman with 4 girls?
Yes, Alhamdulillah.
I'm Suleiman with 3 girls.
Allahu Akbar, what a question.
I want to be like you. I will continue working out, but get into your presentation. Go ahead.
Okay, Alhamdulillah. Once again, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We thank Almighty Allah for sparing our life. We appreciate you, Allah. We thank you. One key, I would like to also thank our brother that did the recitation of Quran for us. So loaded and very heavy in terms of reminding us about riba and how Allah Azza wa Jalla actually warn us against it. And the ustaz, the doctor, the man also pray for us that may Allah Azza wa Jalla provide us with wealth that be halal and dishonored from all form of haram. Having said that, the discussion I would like to have today is just about the capital, investing in capital market, and also they also added this new currency, cryptocurrency. It's just very important for us to understand what capital market is, and again, how do we play in that particular market? A capital market actually is like a market where we raise a long-term fund. This is very important for Muslims. There's a difference between a money market and a capital market. And I think this topic has been properly chosen. A capital market is where you raise a long-term fund, and a money market, by definition, is a market where you raise a short-term fund. And in all of this, what are we targeting? What are our roles in playing in this market? As Muslims, one needs to understand the market. I need to understand several instruments that are in the market. As we have it today, we have several instruments that are in the market. And this market, the capital market, is very, very important for the growth of every economy. The world is volatile, it's uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And in that situation, excuse me, in that situation, you have challenges, and with challenges come with opportunities, and with opportunities you have growth. And to finance growth, most of the time, what you try to do is, you raise funds for the purpose of financing growth. But most of times, growth has been funded with problems, and growth has been funded with burden. And those burdens, many of us who are still carrying it today, especially in the country or in other parts of the world. It's a capital market whereby you have instruments that will be able to address those funding needs. Individual will have funding needs. At corporate level, we also have funding needs. And also as country, we have funding needs. But as I said, funding needs have been addressed in a way that is not proper. It's not even Islamic. We understand because it's not Islamic country. But to expose most of those bodies, I remember one of the areas that you can look at is what Obasanjo mentioned, the former president Obasanjo mentioned at that time, when he said that we borrowed $5 billion and we have paid almost $7 billion. That shows that there's a burden of nothing but interest, compounded interest. And what Islam is just saying is saying that this is something that we must avoid. Allah knows us better than ourselves, and Allah actually, has given us series of warning, and that's what the Ustad that gave us the opening recited, saying so much about riba. But how can we go about this funding? How can we go about achieving growth without going through the interest body? And that's why we have Islamic capital market. Islamic capital market is also a capital market. A market for raising long-term funds. The only difference there is that this market is guided by Sharia, and you have the guidelines of what you have to invest in. There are Sharia council that actually decide on what to invest in. I'll quickly then come back to what we have in a conventional capital market. We have all sorts of instruments that have been used. What do I mean by instruments? A product that you invest in for the purpose of raising funds for some other people for their projects to finance the growth that I've mentioned. You have people who have equity, you have stock that you buy stock. When you buy stock, either you buy stock from the stock market or you buy stock through the initial public offering when a company is coming out and is trying to raise money and is issuing shares, initial public offering, you buy through it. And that's a way of raising funds. You invested in it. It's like you bought equity. And aside from buying equity, there are other products instruments or products you can buy in the market. And one of those instruments, again, is you have bonds. Bond also is a way of raising long-term funds. But with bond, you have the obligation of receiving, I mean, you have the right of receiving the interest rates on a continuous basis until the maturity of the bond. But that bond remains an investment vehicle for us, for you. And when you invested in bond, you get interest and until the maturity of the bond. Aside from bonds in the capital market, you have other instruments that are for long term. I mean, people invest in real estate. It's part of the capital market because for long term. You also have investments in some other collective investment scheme, other alternative. You invest in commodity. Commodity is also another investment, another ways that you can invest in the capital market. With all these instruments, some people also invest in federal government bonds. You have federal government bond that you buy, you invest in it. The bond can be a corporate bond or a federal government bond. Where it's a corporate bond, that is the bond issued by the company. And where it is federal government, that is issued directly by the federal government. And aside from that, you have treasury bills that you invest in. These are bills that are invested for a short-term period. But this is not a capital market, it's a money market. But what I'm trying to address here is that people invest in all these instruments without even knowing whether they are capital market or their money market. The difference between the two is just about the duration, the time that is involved in raising the money in the fund. For its money market, it's a short term, and that's why we have the treasury bill. People invest in treasury bill for 90 days, for 180 days. It's just for a short time within a year. But for anything bond, it goes beyond a year, and that's why it's a long-term fund of raising fund for projects. Government raise fund to fund their project, fund their growth. Company raise fund to fund their growth. And the question is that what are you investing in with all these products? I mean, which of these products is actually very good? I mean, which of these products is halal as a way of connecting you towards wealth? To make money, to increase your wealth, it is important that we do it in a very cautious way, because there are all sorts of instruments that are even, paraded as if they were halal products, but they are not when you scrutinize properly, and that's why it's important for us to ask questions as Muslims. With all these products, which one do we need to invest in? What are the features of some of these products, and what makes them good, halal, and what makes some of them haram? Stock market, equity market is a very good investment that you invest in, but people invest. There's a difference between buying a company and buying a stock. When you are investing in a company, you are looking at the growth of that company, the potential of that company, and you believe that with this potential, with this opportunity that the company has, the company will be able to grow properly, and you can benefit from that growth opportunity. And that makes it a very good investment, and it is halal. But when it comes to speculating on the stock prices, there comes the problem. And what many people do is to speculate in the market. The price of this particular stock today is 5 naira. They buy it, in the next 2 or 3 days, they sell it. So people begin to do a kind of speculative trading. And that is what is not good. What is haram? There have been a lot of argument about this, but the truth is that it is speculation. It is not investment. It's trading. And so aside from that, if you move from investment in equity towards investment in bond, a bond investment or a fixed income investment is an investment that you do and you are collecting regular interest on it. There is no gainsaying the fact that this is haram according to the Quran. This is what we are also speaking against, that any interest-bearing investment, it is haram, and we must move away from it. Investment in treasury bill, investment in bond that is paying interest, it is haram, and is not to be invested in, by a Muslim, because of the fact that it goes against the religious ethics. And aside from that, you have other instruments. There can be structured products that you put together when people package a product together and they mobilize funds for the purpose of investing in a project, such investment, and that's the reason why you need to scrutinize the investment, the product you are buying into. If somebody informs you that you have put together a product for you to invest into that product, you must ask questions that what is the nature of the product, which project are you investing in, and what is the return. As Muslims, I think one key thing that we must be prepared to share profit, to invest with the hope of profit or loss. But that is scarce, and that is the dilemma we face. I face that dilemma when I discuss investment with many of our people, because people want to do investment, they want to earn return that is high, and unfortunately, the return that is high, we have some, underlying interest on them, and when you put this across, some go with this, some will not go with this type of investment. But the truth is, anything that you put together that you invest in a particular project and you are doing through a particular structured product, that kind of investment, you need to scrutinize what is this project. Is a project halal? Is a project haram? Is it a project that is, it has been certified as investable by Sharia board, or is it not? If it's not, just move away from it. Get information about that is not something very difficult. We're always there to provide assistance along that line. Investment, as I say, in treasury is not something that is allowed. So all interest-bearing investment, it is not a good investment. Then we have exchange-traded fund. Maybe many of us will have had ETF, exchange-traded fund. It's a fund that you invest in a basket of stocks. It could be stocks, it could be other thing entirely. If it is stocks, it's like if instead of buying a flour mill, instead of buying another company, maybe it's a Seplat, instead of buying Dangote cement, or you are buying other companies, then you have all these companies that have been packaged together for the purpose of you investing in just one basket. What is the issue here? The question is that what are the components of the baskets you are buying into? What makes them up? You don't just invest in ETF without finding out what makes up that particular ETF. Exchange traded fund, again, as I said, is a basket of companies of stocks stocks that you are investing in. You must know what you are investing in. Of projects, it could be projects that are put together from different areas, and they issue it as an ETF. It could be countries bashed together and you are investing in it. The question is, what are you investing in? You must scrutinize before you invest in. So there's popular ETF. Always try to know what are the components of the investment you are going for, so that you are not making any mistake. For me, if I see any ETF in stock, if I see any ETF in bonds, ETF in bond, most of the time will not go with it. But ETF in stock, yes, I want to go with it, but I need to know what makes up that, the stock, the component of that particular ETF. Whether are there stock there that are not supposed to invest in? If they are, then just get that. You must ask questions without, you don't need to invest without asking questions about what you are investing in. Then there is so Islamic capital market provide us with list of instruments. They provide criteria for us towards scrutinizing what we should actually invest in. They provide information for us, and I think this is why it is very, very good for us to know. Investing in commodity is very good. Investing in commodity at its own risk, it is very good. And people invest in several types of commodities, and you just need to know who are the people behind what you are investing in, what makes them, what are the components, what makes it up before you invest in such commodity. There are different types of commodity too, so you must know what type of commodity are you investing in. Is this a commodity that's also halal or haram? So these are the questions that you must be asking as somebody investing, because your wealth must be purified. And the way to purify the wealth is towards asking. You must take a deliberate effort, make a deliberate effort towards asking what are the components of what you are investing in, to be sure that there's something that is good, it is something that is acceptable, it is halal. There are too many schemes also going on. There are too many platforms that people are asking you to come and invest in those platforms. We have had several products colored in different ways. I mean, people are selling some savings. You have 15% return, 10% return, especially in Nigeria. You have all those fintech companies that are also putting some website. You see all sorts of people invest. They are inviting them, and you get this particular return. The question is that what are you investing in? You must know it. Anything that is fixed return, you must be careful of that. A fixed return, you must scrutinize it. I mean, there's one of the things you also invest in. I mean, the capital market is sukuk. A sukuk is, people have said that sukuk is like a bond, but honestly, when you look at sukuk properly, it's more than a bond. I think sukuk is actually an equity, really. Equity because of you have access to an underlying, you are co-owner of the underlying asset in a proper sukuk. You are a co-owner of the underlying asset. And people have said that a sukuk is just like a conventional bond, a bond that you get interest. The way these things are calculated, the way they are structured is different from a normal conventional bond. So we must have that understanding. We must have understanding what is the sukuk investing in? What is the underlying asset that you are investing in? Is it a project? Is it, infrastructure? What are they financing with the sukuk, the fund they are raising for the purpose of sukuk? So we must understand and know those things very well and ask questions. Let's professional analyze for you and ask questions properly before you invest in any kind of instrument. But I believe that sukuk is a very good investment that we must be able to patronize as Muslims, because yes, the real objective of sukuk is to comply with the Islamic investing, and that is raising funds for the purpose of financing projects. It is asset backed. There's an asset that you are co-owner of that asset until eventually that asset is sold and you get your money back, and you also get, the return back from that particular investment. Though it is structured in a way that you get annual return, yes, those annual return must be in form of rental income. Rental income is not haram, it is halal. We have sukuk, issued in Nigeria. Also state government issued sukuk. Federal government has issued its own sukuk. You have corporate sukuk that are also being issued. And we have some companies that are coming out towards issuing sukuk. You also have companies, asset management firms in Nigeria that are putting together fund, halal fund. And what they invest in fund that, they invest in portfolio, projects that are actually halal based. All you need to ask is, so this fund, what is the underlying asset you are investing in? What are you putting the fund in? Somebody asked the question about what is the difference between the ETF and the mutual fund. Mutual fund is a pool of funds that you invest, that you collect and to invest in a particular project. You can pull funds towards invest in stock market. You can pull funds towards investing in a country. You can pull funds towards investing in anything. Mutual fund is a pool of funds from different people who cannot afford to buy a particular investment. So you pull funds for the purpose of investing. The difference between mutual fund and ETF is that mutual fund, it is issued by the asset manager. The issue of anytime you want to sell, you want to buy, you have to go to that asset manager towards redeeming what you have invested in. But ETF, by the name, we call it exchange traded fund. That is, this fund is trading on the floor of the exchange. That's the difference, basic difference. It's like a combination of mutual fund, but it is now trading on the floor of the exchange. So anytime you can sell, you can buy. You don't need to meet any asset manager for doing that. You can buy. Just all you need to do is to talk to your sub-broker for the purpose of investing in ETF. So these are the series of instruments that you have in stock market for the purpose. In the capital market. If you want to invest in capital markets. Now there is a question about. One thing that is common about capital market is sharing, risk sharing. Islamic capital market is the concept of risk sharing. When you are investing with others. You are investing for the purpose of raising funds to fund a particular project, halal project and not haram project. And this, I think we need to know it very well. We need to be very conscious of it. For me, there is a need for every one of us to ask questions about what we're investing in. I must also say that return on investment for most of the instruments that we can invest in, they are not high yielding, return. And it's not something you expect within a year. Many of us, we want to invest and get return in the next 6 months. We want to invest and get return in the next 3 months. A capital market is a market for a long-term fundraising. You see a project, you want to be part of it. You want to. There are many companies that are coming up, small and medium companies, that they need to raise funds for the purpose of investing. In other economies, there's something coming up now. We call it crowdfunding. People they crowdfund. That is, they call the people who fund together. People who are not connected, who are not related, they put funds together and they just invest in projects. That crowdfunding is more Islamic than any other thing, because what you are doing is that you have a project that you want to invest in and you put funds together from different sources and invest in that particular project. And that's crowdfunding. They call it UMA funding. That is, UMA put funds together to fund that particular project. And with that concept, it saves it protects, it promotes the growth of many medium-sized companies who have huge potential to grow and whose burden of interest will kill them if they don't have another source of financing. We know many companies that have gone under just because of the interest burden, and they cannot cope again. Many people have huge opportunities to do investment, and these are the areas that we need to come in. We are pushing towards, putting together something that we will be funding them for the purpose of investing. But to invest, so as Muslims, these are the opportunities we're looking for. Where are the people that are crowdfunding for a project that we can identify with? These are the questions we're asking, because the conventional investment, the treasury bill, the bond investments that is interest yielding, they are not for a typical Muslim. They are not, because it's interest bearing. And the best thing is to just move away from it, as the Ustaz gave us in the opening discussion, opening recitation. So this is Islamic capital market. It's a combination of equity and bond and debt. Equity investment and debt investment. They form the pillar of Islamic capital market. But many of them, they are all in equity investment. There are all sorts of several types of investment that you can do, structure that can put in place in Islamic finance, Islamic capital market, Mudaraba, Murabaha, and several Aljara, and several others that you can put together. They are all structures that will put together towards investing. And this is just, coming to the marketplace, people putting them together. You have in the capital market, you have the people that need fund, and you have people that want to provide fund. This is the meeting place, a meeting market for the two of them. But in that meeting market, what is the structure, what is the process? And that is what the structure needs to be guided by the Sharia. And once guided by the Sharia, they have the list of what you can invest in. They have the benchmark, the determining factors towards investing in those areas. When we have them properly set out, then I think you can just go ahead and invest in those instruments. They are not country based. They can be in different countries. They can be in different areas. All we need is to get, and this is just internet age. You can get all sort of information you need on a particular product you want to invest in. And a word of caution: please, we must be careful not investing in too high in investment that we can see that the return is so high and we don't have a detail. I'm repeating it because I know what people have gone through around me, and they come back complaining about how they've been duped, how they've lost their principal. And I know that is not the halal way. So we need to do investment in proper halal way. This is capital market is about ethical principle. It's about risk sharing. It's assets backed. Most of the things we want to invest, they are asset backed. If federal government is issuing sukuk, it has to be asset backed. It is asset backed, and that's why it is sukuk, and that's why it's different from other bonds that they are issuing. So I quickly go, in order to meet up with my time. I believe there is a need to also discuss about the crypto currency, which is another asset class that we witness today. The area of crypto is something that I think we need more understanding on it properly, so that we don't miss anything on it. Cryptocurrency is just like a currency that is encrypted. That's the way I would just simply define it. We all know what has happened, the evolution of money, from trade by barter to coin, from coin to fiat money. Fiat money is just because there's a backing by the government, and that's all. It's just a paper, a piece of dollar, naira, they are all papers. But the only reason why they have value is because they are backed by the full faith and credit of the federal government. And so we move from that, then you go to where people begin to have cashless payments. We move from account to account in different banks, and all these payments, they are going on. So the world is changing. The payment system is also changing significantly. And when you look at what will happen in the next 5-10 years, the world is becoming so dynamic. The growth pace is so geometric, and many things are changing in terms of how we participate in the information age. And so with this change, what do we need? What has come to stay is that the payment system is also evolving, and it's evolving fast. People don't rely so much on authority again, and on the central banks again. People believe that so much of manipulation. And what has happened is that we have a new payment system that is a currency, that where people can make without themselves to any control of the government. And so it's a digital payment system. It doesn't rely on banks to verify your transaction. It's a peer-to-peer system. We have an agreement. It is a decentralized, because it's a decentralized ledger. If the payment is between two banks, then each bank is still having control over its operation. But when it is decentralized and everything, all the payments, they are peer-to-peer, then you have a digital payment system. It's a digital asset, and that's why call it a cryptocurrency. The currency is encrypted. It's a virtual currency that is encrypted or secured using cryptography. What is the dimension of Islam? What is the takeaway? What is the point of view of a typical Muslim on this cryptocurrency? There have been a lot of things that people have said on cryptocurrency. Many have said it is haram. Other people have said it is halal. And the question is, a cryptocurrency is a currency. It's a means of payment. A means of payment does not become haram. It's a means of payment. It's a currency. It's only that it's not physical currency. It is virtual. It is not something you can touch, you can hold. It is virtual. You have a wallet that is created for it. You have a digital wallet. If you want to spend from it, you spend from it. If you want to pay from it, you pay from it. If you want to pay into it, you pay into it. It's a digital currency. And so the question is that why is it halal or is it haram? So there've been questions around it. And honestly,
3 minutes left, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. And so the point for me is that there's a difference between trading and investing. Like a forex, I'm a currency, a proper currency. We trade on currency. Many people trade on currency, and many Muslims are running away from currency because they can't. It's speculative. The difference between trading and investing. You can invest in currency, but when it becomes trading, then it becomes a problem. So investing in currency just for speculating purposes, I think it is something that so investing in cryptocurrency, looking at the value, when it goes up, you sell, when it comes down, you buy again. Yes, it's speculating, and I think that's where the problem comes from. So for me, this is my personal opinion, that cryptocurrency is not haram. It becomes haram when it becomes something you are trading. So trading in cryptocurrency is haram. As far as I have also read, is haram. But the use of cryptocurrency, it is not haram because it's a means of payment. So it's a means of payment and it's not haram. On the final note, I just want us to take care of, some things quickly before I close. And that as Muslims, we must be clear about what risk are we ready to take, what return are we expecting. We must also redefine our investment horizon. We should not be short-termist. Short-term investment will not pay us. We should look at more long-term horizon. People who create wealth, who make wealth, they are not short-termists. They are long-term investors. They look at investment opportunity and they key into it. That's what makes them worthy at the end of the day. And we must be sure that the investment we are putting in, we have some reasonable level of liquidity, and that will take care of a lot of things. And we will also monitor our investment. So thank you for the opportunity to present this. I will be willing to take some questions and provide answers to the best of my knowledge. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I was going to call you Dr. Aridokun, but I didn't see Dr. Right? Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. That was really, really good, very engaging, very, very, very passionate about the topic, and you are very, very explicit. Thank you very much. Our audience has grown from 50 that we started to almost 120 that we have now. And I know that there are some people that are watching this, joined us as a family. So this is a well-attended program. We thank you for joining us with that for your presentation. I just sent you a question to your private box, but while you think about the answer to that, I'm going to ask one of the questions that was posted here. Can you compare crowdfunding and cooperative? Are they the same? Is it one old school and the new one is new school? Or they're just the same thing?
I think so, because a cooperative is when you have a group of people that come together and they are contributing for the purpose of investing in whatever to get return for themselves. The crowdfunding is when you also put funds from different people. The cooperative, they know themselves. They come together. In crowdfunding, it's not cooperative that they know themselves. Is the point that the crowdfunding, you just put the platform and you invest, people see they come in different ways. The only thing that's common with the crowdfunders is that they have the same objective. They have what they are looking for. They see the project they are looking towards investing in. That's just what I would say the difference.
Thank you. You can answer the first one I posted to you.
So thank you very much. The first question is on speculation and investing. The question is that if the speaker can please talk a bit more about the speculative aspect of funding that you mentioned. Aren't all investments speculative? Yeah. So there's a short-term speculations. Let me go by with what you say. There is short-term speculation and there's long-term speculation. When you do a long-term speculation, you are doing investing. People key into projects. I see, for example, a Dangote key into a refinery project. For the purpose of adding value, what Islam is after is creating value. Creating reproductivity is what Islam is after, what Sharia is after. It is not speculating. When you are speculating, you are not creating value. You are trading on money. You are not creating anything productive. It's like when you are buying company and you are selling company. I buy stock today and I sell tomorrow. I'm just trading. I'm not creating any value. I can't say I'm investing. I'm only trading with money I have. So the difference between the two, and that's what makes the difference between the two. So investing is a long-term project. And so you have a long-term horizon. You have opportunity you have seen. For somebody that is speculating on short-term, it's like you are speculating on the price movement. A short-term price movement. That, it will go to 7 naira, 2 naira, sell. That's the difference I would like to say there. Okay.
Thank you very much. Sister Shade Shumade Raji, I saw you raise your hand. Did he answer your question or you have a follow-up question?
I'll be willing to take any follow-up questions.
Follow-up question on crowdfunding, right? Where do they meet? We know where cooperative people, they meet. They meet in the market. Crowdfunders, what platform do they meet?
Thank you very much. Now, for example, let me give you an example. Like if I have a project as medicine, if a firm have come to me, small, medium firm, they have come to me that they want fund for a particular project. So I can put it down on a platform, on a website, on a platform created for that purpose and invest and invite several people to come and invest in it. So people see it and they come on that platform and they fund the project, that project. The project is put on a platform that is seen. I can also crowdfund without even having a platform. All I need to do is to call several people around me, people that I know, send mail, and you expose to them what project you are willing to invest in. I mean, you are willing to crowdfund for. And when people believe in it, they put money into it. They don't need to know themselves. So, but the person inviting you must be somebody credible that you can also see. You can see the governance structure that is backing it. It's not somebody just calling to come and invest in a crowdfunded project and put in your money. No, you need to see the structure. What do they have in place? I mean, how secure is your fund? All those things need to be properly scrutinized and fine. You are safe. You should be sure you are safe before you put in your money. But those are the process of crowdfunding. It can be on a platform. It can be or a non-platform crowdfunding, whereby you just call people around to come and invest.
Okay. So we're going back to the issue of speculation, right?
Okay.
So is speculation, when it comes to investment, does it make it haram? Since we all speculate in any investment anyways.
So, and that's what I was, thank you very much. That's what I was saying, that, okay, if I have a project, if there is investment in mining in Nigeria, for example, mining in Nigeria, and I see opportunity in Nigeria and in mining industry, and I key into that mining industry project, and I invest in it, believing that thing will not call me until the project today I put in my money into it, it won't yield any result, anything from my own feasibility report until next 3 years or 4 years. What I'm doing is investing. But you can imagine I go to the market, I'm speculating on the stock price of the mining industry. What I'm doing, the fund that I'm doing is just exchange. It's a trading. It's speculating. It is not investing. There are two different things. This one is short term. 1 day, 2 days, I'm speculating to make money. It's a short term thing. I know it. I know this is a very, turbulent question, area of discussion. But the point is that investing is more of a long term. Speculation is more of a short term. The part of speculation that leads to investing is that you are looking at opportunity on the long-term horizon to capture it. In that process, what you are doing, you are adding value. There is a productivity in the investment speculation. In this speculation, there is no productivity apart from you trading on money. And that is what makes it not good. Trading on money is not good because it's not productive. It is not real productivity. Investing in terms of that, on the other hand, it is productive. You have something that is, there's no way you invest in mining that you won't bring about people. There's no way you have a lot of benefit to create. You are creating value for the environment. In this speculation I'm talking about, there's no value. You're only creating value for yourself. You are creating value by trading on money. So trading on money is what makes it haram. Anything you are doing, you are not creating productivity on it. And that's what Islam frowns at. I'm not a sheikh, I'm not an afar, but this is what I've learned over the period.
Makes sense. We're running out of time, but I want to also take a very important question, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think about the system in Nigeria where people will put down maybe $1 million and they will promise to multiply it in 2 days or in 1 week? So the reason why I'm putting the $1 million naira in the business is because I'm sure that someone has promised that I'm going to get double of that in 1 week or 2 days. Is there anything wrong with that? Should I be doing that, or I should be discouraged from doing that? Okay,
thank you very much. There is something wrong and there's nothing wrong. What is wrong with it is that what type of project, if that investment, you can't just give somebody your money without knowing what you want to do with it. Do you believe in what you want to do with it? Do you think that they can make that money? What people are doing today is to just rally and collect money. They will turn back something for you in the next 1 month, and it doesn't happen. They promise better return. For some, truly, somebody can have good opportunity. Maybe they have one project I want to finance that just take within a short while, and they can make that return from it. They want to share. Okay, let me give a typical example. Somebody collected 3 million the last 1 month. He invested, he did a project for an IPO with government, with the company, and he collected the money back, and we share return. for that kind of investment, it is good. You can get that return from that individual, from that investment. But where somebody just promising you that, give me the money, I'm going to give you this particular, please, we should be careful. We must not go into it. Anything we are investing, we must see that it brings about productivity.
Thank you very much. I wish we had a whole day to continue this, but unfortunately, we don't have a whole day to spend on this. I know there are a lot of unanswered questions, right? Our next speaker will answer some of the other questions.
Fantastic.
We also have a follow-up question with follow-up discussion with you. This has been very engaging, very, very helpful. You know, I'm going to invite our Imam to pray for our guest speaker, Brother Suleiman Abu Four Girls, right? to pray for him. Thank you very much.
Faiza, Ryan, Rauda.
I have Iman, Amani, and Ikman. So I need to work on 1 to even with you.
That would be nice.
Over to you, sir. Imam, you're on mute.
Okay, thank you. We pray to Almighty Allah to give you long life. As we pray to Allah to accept all the effort from you as act of ibadah and to reward you abundantly here in this world and after. اللهم إنا نسألك له من الخير كله عاجله وآجله ما علمنا منه وما لم نعلم ونعوذ بك من الشر كله عاجله وآجله ما علمنا منه وما لم نعلم اللهم إنا نسألك له من الخير ما سألك من عبدك ونبيك محمد عبادك الصالحون ونعوذ بك من الشر ما استعاذك من نبيك محمد عبادك الصالحون آمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم. Thank you. جزاكم الله خير.
آمين وإياكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you. Thanks, Imam. So on this note, we're going to transition to the second half of today's program. I am honored to be sharing the stage here with Dr. Ganiya Habib, who is going to help us facilitate the second half of the program. Dr. Habib, are you ready?
Yes, inshallah.
Bismillah. Go for it.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Inshallah, I welcome everyone to the second part of the program. We'll be continuing, inshallah, with recitation of the Holy Quran that will be done by Asiya Muhib. Is Asiya ready for us?
Yes, she's here. Maybe Dr. Okay, yeah.
Please, all right. Please go ahead.
Sorry. Sorry, my mic had an issue. Can you hear me clearly now?
We can hear you.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والله يريد أن يتوب عليكم ويريد الذين يتبعون الشهوات أن تميلوا ميلا عظيما يريد الله أن يخفف عنكم وخلق الإنسان ضعيفا يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل إلا أن تكون تجارة عن تراض منكم ولا تقتلوا أنفسكم إن الله كان بكم رحيما ومن يفعل ذلك عدوانا وظلما فسوف نصليه نارا وكان ذلك على الله يسيرا إن تجتنبوا كبائر ما تنهون عنه نكفر عنكم سيئاتكم وندخلكم مدخلا كريما ولا تتمنوا ما فضل الله به بعضكم على بعض للرجال نصيب مما اكتسبوا وللنساء نصيب مما اكتسبوا واسألوا الله من فضله إن الله كان بكل شيء عليما ولكل جعلنا موالي مما ترك الوالدان والأقربون والذين عقدت أيمانكم فآتوهم نصيبهم إن الله على كل شيء شهيدا. And then
The meaning?
Yeah, I'm supposed to read the translation after. So I'm going to start from, this is Surah Nisa, ayah 27. So the beginning is, and it is Allah's will to return to you in grace, but those who follow their desires wish to see you deviate entirely from Allah's way. And it is Allah's will to lighten your burdens, for humankind was created weak. O believers, do not devour one another's wealth illegally, but rather trade by mutual consent, and do not kill each other or yourselves. Surely Allah is ever merciful to you. And whoever does this sinfully and unjustly will burn them in the fire. That is easy for Allah. If you avoid the major sins forbidden to you, He will absolve you of your lesser misdeeds and admit you into a place of honor. And do not crave what Allah has given some of you over others. Men will be rewarded according to their deeds, and women equally according to theirs. Rather ask Allah for His bounties. Surely Allah has perfect knowledge of all things. And we have appointed hires to what has been left by parents and next of kin. As for those you have made a pledge to, give them their share. Surely Allah is a witness over all things. And that's that.
Sadaqallahu al-Azim. Indeed, truth are the word of Allah. Jazakallahu khairan, Asiya. That was a beautiful recitation. I mean, that's a very appropriate verse for the topic that we have today. Inshallah, the fiqh of capital investment in Islam. Alhamdulillah. This has been a very expository session, especially for a lot of us that were not very versed in capital financing and investment. Jazakallah khairan for the organizers of this program. We cannot thank you enough. May Almighty Allah bless our daughter Asiya. She's an hafidha of the Holy Quran. And mashallah, she's one of our children, and may Allah continue to guide your step and your actions and make you among those that will be inheritors of Jannah. Ameen. Inshallah, I have the honor to invite the next speaker to give us more lectures on investment, fiqh of capital investment in Islam. And I have the honor of presenting Dr. Abdul Latif Bello. Dr. Abdul Latif Bello obtained his Master's and Doctor of Philosophy degrees in Applied Statistics from the University of Oxford, UK. He was awarded the prestigious International Rhodes Scholarship for exceptional ability, academic excellence, and performance that enabled him to complete his studies at Oxford and became the 10th Rhodes Scholars from Nigeria. MashaAllah. He also attended the Management Development Program of the Center for Management Development, at London Business School, United Kingdom also. Also, as an international development banker, Dr. Bello served in different capacities, which include, but not limited to, treasury dealing rooms, operations, research departments at the Islamic Development Bank, where he worked for over 24 years on various initiatives and themes including Islamic financing, data analytics, capacity development, strategies, policies, and emerging development issues facing members of the member countries of IDB, which is Islamic Development Bank. At IDB, he occupied 3 senior managerial positions simultaneously, which are Director of Economic Research and Policy, Director of Data Resources and Statistics, and the IDB Group Chief Librarian. MashaAllah, he's more than overqualified to take care of us today. He also attained the highest professional and technical position at the bank. He began his career as a lecturer with the Federal University of Technology, Akure in Nigeria, which we all know as FUTA, and later became a software developer with Numerical Algorithm Group, NAG, Oxford, United Kingdom too. In 2003, he won the highest and most coveted IDB award for excellence in performance and authored, among others, the role of Islamic finance in achieving sustainable development goals. Subhanallah, mashallah. As an international scholar, he served as a board member of several international bodies and initiatives, including Board of Global Strategy to Improve Agricultural and Rural Statistics, FAO, and Partnership in Statistics for Development in the 21st Century, in quote, Paris 2021, as well as a member of IFSB's task force on Prudential Islamic Finance database. Dr. Bello is well-traveled extensively to more than 40 countries, representing IDB at various conferences and initiatives. I have the pleasure and the honor of presenting Dr. Abdul Latif Bello to us to, give us a talk on Islamic versus conventional capital markets. Marhaba bikum, sir. Ahlan wa sahlan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Alhamdulillahi hamda shakirin. Alhamdulillahi wa salatun wa salamun ala rasul kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa zuriyatihi wa man taba'ahum bi ihsan ila yawmiddin. Respected brothers and sisters, it's a great honor to be with you today. I'm really thankful for the organizers for the invitation extended to me. I'm so happy to see you all. I think I was so lucky to listen to the last speakers, at least towards the end. I really appreciate all your effort, and I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity, and I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be your guide and guidance. Today's topic will be on Islamic finance, versus conventional capital market. I'm trying to see. Can you see the screens? Okay.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Let me start with a quotation from the saying of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He said, "A time will certainly come over the people when none will remain who will not devour history. If he does not devour it, his favor will overtake him." So that means we're in an era where we face a lot of challenges, whether what the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said is in our era or the era that is coming. But we know specifically in Sahih Bukhari where he said, that there's no generation or period that will come upon you, the one that will follow is going to get worse. So we pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to make our time or period worse than the one we took over from. With this background, when you talk about capital market, a lot of things goes into mind. I will make my presentation, I will demystify capital market, introduce a lot of concepts, talk about equity market, talk about bond market, mutual funds, and then talk about criteria for Sharia compliance stocks, some tips. Then I will hand up my presentation with conclusion and takeaways. Thereafter, there could be question and answer session. In capital market, as you know, there are many markets. If you're looking for clothes, you know where you go. If you're looking for RAM, you know where you go. If you want to buy anything, there are a lot of market for them. But when you have to set up a company, and the company needs to grow, you need to expand, you're looking for a long-term capital instead of short-term capital. If it's short-term, you can go to a bank and take the loan. But you want to spread your risk. You want to mobilize savings that are available in the market. So the only place you go is capital market. It's a place where individuals or corporates or organizations in need of long-term capital, mean those who have and can provide this long-term capital. That's the definition of what they call it, capital market. It is composed of two markets, essentially. You have this primary market where a company, issue initial public offering. The company is looking to raise capital. So what it does is it invites the investors to have shares in the company. The second aspect is called secondary market. Okay, I'm part of a body share now. Tomorrow I want to sell the share. The money has been taken by the company. So there should be a market for me to say, well, I want to go out of this company, or I want to sell some part of my shares to make money quickly. So that's why you have a secondary market. It's called a share market. The last one is when you go to market, there's a capital market, you talk about securities. And there are two types of securities you find in capital market. The first ones are called shares, and the second ones are called bonds. So these are the general overview of a capital market. I will explain what is a primary market using the illustration, what do you call it, a simple diagram, as well as secondary market, so that at least you can get the full meaning of what capital market consists of. There will be a lot to really help us in our discussion. I will take you through some of these basic definitions you may be aware of. There's a difference between a share and a stock. A share is a unit of a ownership in a corporation or a company. So when you buy a share, you just have a unit of that in a company. So that's a share. A stock is an investment that represents ownership or equity in a corporation. So many times people interchangeably use shares and stock, but in real definition, these are the clear distinction between the two. A bond is what? I owe you issued by a government or a company to raise capital from a market for a specific purpose, for a project, for a general use, or at a set rate and maturity. So in a bond, whoever is issuing it will tell you this bond will be maturing at a particular period, which is maybe 5 years, 3 years, or 10 years along the line. And they will also give you a rate attached to the bond. The bond must be tradable. That means when you buy the bond, you should be able to sell it. You should be able to trade it to make money. It has to be rated based on likelihood of issuer being able to pay the bond back. And lastly, a bond is less volatile compared to stock market. Then you have a mutual fund. It's a pool of resources. Your people have little money, other people have money, so you bring it together to spread the risk. So it's a way of redistributing wealth, because those who have less, they put their money in a pool. So when the fund appreciates, you also help them. It's a way of really fighting poverty to a certain extent. It has its own benefits and disadvantages. And lastly, we have exchange traded funds. You know, when you look at an index like S&P 500, I mean, you cannot invest an index, but you can invest in the constituent of that index. So if you take your broker, you tell your broker that, you look, I want to put all my money in the 500 S&P. It's not the index. It's all the companies that constitute the what do you call it, the index. So when you invest in that stock, it's called exchange traded funds. Now, let me show you diagrammatically what is going on here in the primary market. Sorry, I don't know how to remove this. Okay. So in the primary market, someone needs a capital. And that capital is to grow and expand business. So it's a long-term capital. If it's a short time, you could have gone to a bank or get a friend to borrow the money. And this individual or company really want to spread the risk. Doesn't want to be the only person bearing the risk. So it's looking for a long-term capital. So your money will be locked into the company, because as long as the money continues with them, the company makes profit, you get dividends. So the company really want to go public by creating equity shares. And to do that, it creates it flows what you call initial public offerings. And then you have all these investors. It could be you or anyone else. And what they do, the company sells shares to these investors, and in return, the investors buy and own the shares. So this is just a simple concept of capital, what they call a primary market. You are part of this company. You have equity, you have share there. Whenever the company makes profit at the end of the year, the company will declare dividends, and that's where you make your own money. Now, let's go to secondary market. If you look on the left-hand side, these are the three investors that came on board. And then you have on the right side, you have new investors who really they felt that, well, the company is doing well. they really want to be part of the success story. They want to buy the share of the company. The IPO was already closed. So those who already bought into that, what they call the share of the company, when the company floated the IPO, they are part of the owners of that company. They have shares. Now, a new person subsequently cannot go back to the primary market. It has to go to the secondary market. That means the company must go to the Security Exchange Commission to really, it has to, what do you call it, upgrade its status to a PLC, public limited company. You know, it has to say now, yes, anybody can buy my share. And that company, I mean, the body that regulates all those companies that declare themselves PLC, that allows their shares to be traded, is called Security and Exchange Commission. I'm just giving an example of Nigeria here, where you have all these newcomers. Each one of them is saying, look, through this medium or through your stock exchange, I mean, broker, you can say, well, I want to buy that company's share. I want to buy 100 shares. And then you put it on the platform and say, look, I want to buy your share that you bought for $10 or maybe $12. If I feel that I'm under pressure to, what do you call it, get money, I say, okay, go ahead. I will say that to him. Another person can come and go to another company, I mean, to another individual and say, well, I want to offer $14 for a share. So all this front and back in terms of trading stock take place in the secondary market. And there's a platform for buying and selling pre-owned shares because it has to be pre-owned before it goes to secondary market. Primary market is where you make the best opportunity because that's the time the company is opening up. Once it closed the IPO, you cannot go in there. The only way you can go is through secondary market. And that's how, what they call the secondary market functions. Now, in the capital market, these are the products you get there. You have equity, you own, you are part of the company's success story because you own a share in that company. So first product you get in the capital market, there are 4 of them. One is the equity shares. You are part of the company, so I mean, what do you call it? You buy shares in that company, so you have equity. Second one is the second what do you call it? Product you get in the capital market is debt. You'll be hearing about corporate debt, government debt in America, and you'll be hearing about sukuk as well. So when I will move to the second part of my presentation, I will explain to you the concept of sukuk. So because I know we are all here as a Muslim to share knowledge and then benefit from what is going on around us. We don't want to be spectators. Allah says in the Quran, "Wala tansa nasibaka mina dunya." You should not forget your own share of this world. So if you have a means to make money, to create wealth, you should not deny yourself, since scholars all over the world have come up with Islamic capital market to really help you also to be part of these success stories in the 21st century. So the first one is equity, the second one is debt, and the third element or product of the capital market is an hybrid where you combine debt and equity. And the last one is mutual funds. You're all familiar with it. You can buy equity funds, fixed income funds. There are different types, money market funds, index funds, and so on and so forth. You have them all over the places. So when you go to a capital market, these are the products you get there. Now, if you take America, for instance, most of the capital market, you have all these major indexes that monitor what they call measure performance of US, stocks. You have Dow Jones, S&P, NASDAQ, Global. I'm just taking this, what they call a screenshot of what transpired on the 17th of, so I cannot see well because there's a coverage here. On 15th of September, I went to the website to download what is really going on here. This is US. You can see that every second, something is moving down or up. So at that very moment, Dow Jones was 34,750 index-wise, and then it fell by 216.78 points, which is minus 0.62%. Now, in America, these are the key stock indices you find here. You may have small ones all over the places. In Europe, you also have this. In Asia, this is what you have. So all over the world, wherever you go to, you have what they call stock indices. that you can really monitor and then see where to measure performance of stock. And then, as I said earlier, you cannot invest directly on an index. Now, if you take S&P 500 index, this is the latest trend you see there. Now, there's what they call Buffett's indicator. The second graph you see there is when you take the stock market capitalization and then you take the ratio vis-a-vis the GDI of a country. It tells you something. It tells you whether the price, what do you call it, the stock is overpriced or is overvalued. You know, when it's higher above the trend line, it means it is overvalued. If it is below, it's undervalued. So this is just to give you a clue that if you have to be part of this capital market, success stories, or you want to participate in investment through capital market, there are instruments that you can use to really measure when to go to the market. Now, globally, there are 60 major stock exchanges in the world with a total value of 69 trillion. So if you look at different regions, you have in North America, especially America and Canada, constitute more than 41% of what they call it, to world total, followed by Asia, Europe, Middle East, Australia, and Africa. Now, as of last week, let's look at what happened in America in terms of index performance. Everything just went down. You know, all the major Dow Jones, NASDAQ, S&P. But there's something we need to look into here. You know, each of these stock, I used to have a colleague at Islamic Development Bank, very good in stock. Whenever he comes to my office, he's always dancing. I say, what is going on, my brother? He said, you know, there's an earthquake in Japan. Because of that, stock rose in America. So a lot of sensitivities are taking place when it comes to stocks in the US and other parts of the world. And I know you know that American economies is what do you call it? It's linked to many other economies all over the world. So if there is a danger or bad news somewhere, if you look at the last thing you see there, US stock fall amid Greece debt worries. So there are challenges in Greece, and then the stock is going down in America and so on and so. So there's US stock sensitivity. It's not only America, but any big economy that really can affect other economies. So you really need to bear this in mind that if you really want to be part of these capital market activities, there are some sensitivities, and whether from Islamic dimension they make sense or not. I recall, as I said to you, a friend of mine always very happy when there's a bad things happening elsewhere. He was an American, and then he always come and dance in my office. So I feel uncomfortable, but now as you can see, when the oil slides, US stock also drops. When there's a financial rebound in America, the stock also advances. So there are a lot of dependencies. Some of them are external, some of them are exogenous that you cannot predict, but you know, there's a lot of linkages between stocks and happenings around the world. Now, I've talked about general capital market. If we have to talk about anything Islamic, we have to talk about financial principles that guides any Muslims in terms of investment and financing. You know, so over the years, scholars have put together what are the major principles of Sharia. The first one, there's a prohibition of interest. So riba, as you all know it, if you go to a conventional bank, the bank will tell you in advance that, well, I'm giving you a loan, and this is the interest you have to pay. So that interest is what Islam is all against. The second principle of Sharia is uncertainty. Garar. There should be no information asymmetric. Everything has to be plain language. If you go to a bank and then you say, okay, an Islamic bank, I want to take a loan, and then they tell you which mode you want to use. They give you some advices. And at the end of the day, they tell you, this is the administrative charge we will be asking you to pay on top of the loan you are having. It's your right to ask, can I know the formula used by you to arrive at that administrative charge? So there shouldn't be any uncertainty. All information has to be transparent and accurate to the best of ability. So uncertainty to a certain level, if it's small uncertainty, no problem. But if it's a big uncertainty, Islam and Sharia is against it. The third principle is adherence to risk sharing and profit sharing. If you look at the genesis of Islamic finance, or the whole essence of Islamic economy is about sharing, and profits making. You share the risk of a company. If you look at Musharaka, Mudaraba, all these two equity-based modes of financing, they are based on risk sharing and profit sharing as well. The fourth element of principle of Sharia is ethical investment. You cannot be part of, there are a lot of prohibition on finance and investment. So if there's a company engaged in alcohol, pornography, gambling, pork-based products, etc., that's why you have this halal industry springing up. So anything that is prohibited from Sharia dimension that is unethical, we all know what is unethical, like a company dealing with weapons that can destroy people, like nuclear and so on and so forth. These are the things that Islam prohibits. So if you have to finance, these are the key principles that you need to bear in mind. I will dwell on that later. And then another, mode is, principles of Sharia is ban on speculation. So you cannot keep on speculating because Islam is against speculation. I will come to that in the course of my presentation about samples of speculation. And the last one, which is so crucial, is everything you do has to be asset backed. So Islamic finance must be linked to the real economy. It's not speculative. It's not something you just, if you look at bond, conventional bond, it's not linked to any, business or real economy. You invest in a bond, whatever the government decides to do with it, all you are looking for is your own coupon or dividends that they give to you from time to time. Now, we are here to discuss about Islamic capital market per se, but along the line, there's going to be a comparative, comparison between conventional and Islamic capital market. Now, let me move to one of the most popular index is the Dow Jones Islamic Market. They have many of them. One was World Index, and they have another one specifically for USA Index. So when they say the world, that means they go globally to put all these stocks together and then come up with an index. When this US index, that means they only confine themselves to to the shore of America. So these are the two that you get here in both the global and the USA level. Now, you also have S&P. They all have series of Sharia compliance indexes, as you can see from on the left side. If you go to India too, you have what they call Nifty 50 Sharia. And then recently this year, around April, S&P partnered with OIC, ComSec to come up with 50 Sharia index, as you can see on the right-hand side. So I think the whole Islamic capital market is evolving because Dow Jones, S&P, they were the early players. And now I think the OIC is also coming on board with their own Sharia index. Now, later on, I will show you what you call an app that enables you to buy shares anywhere in the world that are Sharia compliant. Now, if you look at Dow Jones Islamic versus conventional, these are all the lists. On the left-hand side, you have Islamic. On the right-hand side, you have all the conventionals. All these are all Dow Jones. They have by region as well as by sector. So you can see that they've penetrated all the regions as well as sectors and becoming one of the reliable index that everybody is really following. When you have to participate in any of these index, over the years, we've seen that there are some criteria set by scholars. Most of them are coming from the principles of Sharia. Number one, as I said earlier, you have to invest in ethical investment. So you are not allowed to engage in forbidden activities. Any companies engaging in any of these forbidden activities, you cannot invest in them. Number two, any companies carrying interest-bearing debt obligation, you're also not allowed to participate. The third element is exclusion of business that derive a substantial amount of interest income. So if you look at a company and its income is coming, a lot of them are coming from interest-based activities, you're also not allowed to. And the last one, which is, if you have a company trading in debt at a price other than their face values, you're also not allowed. So this is the purest form of the rules. But you know, if you follow all these four, that means you don't have any company to invest in, because we live in 24th centuries. Companies are evolving. It could be a company today doing haram, but tomorrow it diverge its activities to some halal. So what do you do in that instances? So scholars over the years, or Sharia boards of different funds and Islamic index generating companies, over the year relaxed rule 2 and 4 above by putting on some thresholds. What do you do if a company is into debt? To what extent the debt can go before you can invest in? So if you see all these Dow Jones, S&P, even the OIC, Dow Jones collaboration index here and there, they have some Sharia boards that start and say, look, that's why we have challenges. We don't have global or universal Sharia board issuing fatwas that are acceptable. If you go today, you go to Dow Jones, they have their own set rules. I will show you. You go to S&P, you have the same. You go to Saudi Arabia, you have Islamic Bank or Raji Bank, they will also have their own shares. You go to mutual funds, each of these board members, they have their own set rule. You don't have global, what they call it, standard. Now, let me take you to example of Dow Jones, the rules used by Dow Jones. Apart from eliminating companies that are not Sharia compliant, they have all these 3 basic rules. Number 1 is the debt. You can see the market there. It has to be, it should be not greater than or equal to 33%. So if your debt to market capitalization is greater than 30 or equal to 30%, so they exclude the company. And then they look at liquid asset of the company, and then finally the receivables. Now, these are the 3, what do you call it, financial indicators they use, apart from looking at the general activities of the company. That's Dow Jones. Now, let's look at S&P Sharia Indices eligibility criteria. Well, the first one is they look at the sector, they screen the company from sector dimension, business activities. What you see the companies are doing, if it's involving all these haram activities or not permissible activities, they exclude them. And then they also read the audited annual report of the company to be sure that whatever they're looking at is exactly reflected or captured in the annual report. It's not just like you go to their website or someone is, telling you about the activity. So audited annual report, that means it has a stamp of an auditing or recognized auditor or auditing firm. The second set of screening criteria is the accounting. You know, they look at leverage, which is equivalent to debt. They look at the cash compliance. They have a number of ratios. And the last one is revenue share. So again, they all have their own. If you look at the thresholds, some of them less than 3%, some of them 49%. You know, these are 3%. Everybody's saying it because at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, I think one companion was about to die, and then he came to the Prophet and said, look, how many, to what extent I can leave, inheritance for my family? And at the end of the day, he told him 1/3. So scholars in general use that as a reference to do all these things. But as I said I mentioned to you earlier, there's no universal formula. If you move from one indices to another, you tend to see that there's a variation in what they look at. And then finally, they came up with this dividend purification ratio. If you look at Lotus Capital here in Nigeria, they have this dividend purification ratio. You know, when you invest in those companies, one way or the other, they can make mistakes. So that's okay. To be on the safe side, they will take your dividends and then multiply it by non-permissible revenue and total revenue. Because this is what Sharia will tell them that, look, there are some activities you undertake that is not halal, or that they suspect uncertainty or gharar in it. So they say, okay, for purification purposes of that, it's like trying to take zakat in a clever way. But this is the formula they use to calculate that purification ratio. So if you felt yourself investing in the company and then you feel that there's some doubt in it, and you have this data with you, you can also do it and then quietly give as a charity to those who deserve to be given. Then you have a situation where the scholars also came with ideas on how, sorry. Let's see well. Okay, now you have investment in Sharia non-compliant activities and income from Sharia non-compliant investment. So they came up with some ruling also. You can see the threshold given there. So this is one of the companies, one of the indices coming from, I can't remember exactly, but I just brought your attention that when you have a situation where the company invested in some activities that are not compliant, are compatible, the company, what you call the Sharia board, use some screening, what you call a formula to really say, well, is it appropriate for you to invest? So they look at total investment of that company, and then that should not be, what they call it, should not exceed 30% of the total asset of the company. So 1/3 of the total investment, if it is coming from non-halal, I think some Sharia board allow it. Also, income from Sharia non-compliant investment should not exceed 5% of the gross income nominal. So if a company is doing bad or you feel that they are doing some non-activity, but their total income is what they call it, should not exceed 5% of the gross income. So under that conditions also, some scholars also allow this, the company to be invested in. Now, let's look at Sharia, what they call it, Islamic capital market and conventional market. A lot of studies have been undertaken from 2005 and 2016, so I put all this together. Well, 2005, 2008, Islamic equity was doing better than conventional. But from 2014 up to 2016, where I got information, the result is mixed. Sometimes they discover that conventional seems to be better, and then sometimes they find that Islamic indices are also good in certain financial indicators. So this is the general overview of the outcome of all the studies that have been taken from 2005 up to 2016. Now, but the story is different. We had this pandemic last year, and that was very predominantly first quarter of 2020. Now, if you look at the S&P during that period, you can see very clearly that the global BMI Sharia fell 17.2%, which considerably outperformed its conventional peers by more than 500. So if you see the first line there, Sharia was minus 7.2, conventional was minus 2.3. So if you look throughout Sharia and conventional, the only occasion where Sharia did not do well was in S&P 500, which was really close to what they call it, the conventional. So under pandemic, when you have external shocks, nobody foresaw pandemic coming, so it just came natural. We see that from the results or figures we have before us here, it indicates that Sharia indices were better than conventional ones. Now, let me talk about Islamic bonds, because we're here to talk about bonds that will be relevant to you rather than just talking about conventional bonds. All know what is conventional bond is not permissible in Islam. As long as you have alternative, Islam prohibits you from going for those that are not halal. So let me focus on Islamic bonds. The type is called sukuk. It's a singular word is sak, which means certificate, deed, order of payment, or check. Well, sukuk is described by many people. You will see it written in many places. You will see Islamic bonds. People call it a bond which circumvents Islamic ban on interest. This is how the Western people describe sukuk. Other people say, well, bonds that round trip real asset from the borrower and back again. So you will see that when I will describe sukuk. Other people call it Islamic investment certificate. Other people call it Islamic capital market security. And lastly, they also call it Sharia securitization market. So anywhere you find all these terminologies, they're all saying the same thing, which is sukuk. Well, definition, is close to what they call it, a typical bond, but different here is you have a tangible asset attached to it. When you talk about sukuk, you have someone must guarantee there must be collateral before it can be said to be sukuk. Now, let me show you the similarities between sukuk and traditional, what do you call it, bond. Well, similarity, both provide investors with payment streams. So every 6 months or thereabout, you get dividends, okay, or coupon. Both are issued to investors and may be used to raise capital. So if you want to go to, there's a need for you to raise a long-term capital, either bond. So this is where the similarity is common. Both are considered to be safer investment than equities. Both are issued in local and international currency, and both can be defaulted. Okay. Differences are as follows. Sukuk involve asset ownership compared to a bond, which is just about debt obligation. In sukuk, sorry. Yeah, asset that back sukuk are Sharia compliant. So if you not have asset that from halal activities, it cannot be alcohol. The asset should not be anything forbidden. Whereas in the non-Sharia one, whereas bonds are often riba, finance non-Sharia compliant business of fuel speculation. So anything goes for a typical bond, you know. The third element of the differences is sukuk investors receive profit generated by underlying asset on a periodic basis, while bond investors receive periodic interest payments. So you can see it's a profit. You list out the asset, the profit you make in what they call it from the underlying asset is what is used to pay the sukuk holder. Whereas in the typical bond, nobody cares. You're just given interest. The last bit is, you cannot just float sukuk. You must have a pronouncement from a Sharia board. So that means a typical organization like a bank must have an advisory committee of experts. They will review and endorse sukuk to guarantee that all aspects fulfill Sharia standards, which is not the case with the bonds. So you can see the difference between a typical there's a similarities, we cannot doubt it, and there are a lot of differences as well. So the differences are coming from the dimension of the principle of Sharia that guides investment and Islamic finance. Now, let me try to explain what is a sukuk, because tomorrow you put in money, the fund is telling you we are putting part of your money in sukuk, especially when you put your money in mutual funds. So let me give you a background at least. When they mention the word sukuk, you know what it's all about. So I try to demystify what it's all about. Let me take the case of federal government of Nigeria. In 2017, the FGN debuted sukuk. At that time, the government was thinking of raising 100 billion naira with a maturity of 7 years, and then the profit they wanted to pay sukuk holder was 16.47%, and then the mode of that sukuk was ijara. That means it's leasing. It was due 2024, the maturity. If you look at the period 2017 to 7 years after, it's going to be 2024. Now, as a government, in the context of a sukuk, the federal government is the borrower because it needs money. So in the context of sukuk, the language we use is also originator. It's the person who wants to originate, looking for money. And it's also called an obligor. So these are the three words used for the federal government or a company that is applying to issue sukuk. Now, when it happens, the government cannot issue sukuk by itself. It has to have a trustee, and that trustee is called special purpose vehicle. The government must set up a company, a separate company. In this case, the government call it Federal Government of Nigeria Rules Sukuk Company 1 is a PLC. So that company is the one that will be dealing with, guaranteeing. That's why they call it trustee. So you have a federal government who wants to raise a capital, and the same federal government set up a company that's independent. So that company is called an issuer of sukuk. It's also the trustee. Now, what happened? The government want to take this 100 billion to finance roads. The roads are not there. So what's going to be the collateral? So the government is saying, well, I have lands that is worth 100 billion naira, because whatever the government is using as collateral must be equivalent to the money the government want to raise outside. Otherwise, if there's a case or problem and the government default, the sukuk holders will not be able to say, hey, sorry, we want to take over the assets, to possess the assets and be able to sell it and get their money. So the first thing the government has done is it has land that is equivalent to 100 billion. So it's transferring that right to the land for construction of the road to an SPV, which is the company, we call it SPV, called Special Purpose Vehicle. It's a company registered by a corporate association, a corporate affairs company of Nigeria, CAC. What then happened? Both the federal government and the SPV, they will execute a forward leasing agreement with and then they will sign on a ticket. You know, it is called forward lease agreement because the land is not, the road is yet to be constructed. So it is forward. The leasing agreement is forward because it's not yet, the people who get the money cannot get the money immediately because the government is just guaranteeing for the time being that, well, I'm a government, as long as the federal government of Nigeria remains, I will continue, I will pay you your money. So this lease agreement is just on paper to say, look, we follow due process, okay? Now, the SPV then does what? It declares a trust over the road to be constructed. So it's taken, that's why we call him a trustee. Take over the land, the roads to be constructed. And then you look for, what do you call it, investors. They call them sukuk holders. What does it do? It invites investors to subscribe to the 100 billion naira that the federal government is looking for. And in return, this SPV issues certificate. That certificate is called the sukuk. You know, sukuk means certificate. So the SPV get this 100 billions from the investors. What then happen? It enters construction and service agreement with the federal government. Okay, I've got this 100 billion. I'm giving this 100 billion. But instead of federal government taking the money, it has a ministry that does what? That constructs the roads. So the federal government appoints a service or construction agent. That construction agent is this Ministry of Power, Works, and Housing. So this ministry collects the money, the project payment is given to the government, and once the project is delivered, the government passes it on to the SPV. And then, now this SPV leases back the land to the government. So now the SPV becomes a lessor and the federal government is a lessee. Now, what the government doesn't stop there, it then makes CBN and appoints other trustees. So to really convince sukuk holders, it opens sukuk repayment account with CBN and also appoints CBN as the paying agent. So all the rents coming from leasing the roads to the users through a toll gate and whatever you have goes from the federal government to the CBN, and the CBN does what? Pass the money back to the trust, to the what they call the sukuk holders. Now, at the end of all this, you know, as the rent is taken by the government, it passes to CBN. CBN pays the what they call it sukuk holders every 6 months, dividends or coupon. At the end of this sale and purchase of roads at maturity, there's a buyback. The federal government says, okay, SPV, you know, I'm buying back the roads and the land at equivalent of 100 billion. So the payment that the sukuk holders paid to hold the certificate is now channeled back to them. So the sukuk holder at the end of the exercise, they get this half year, what they call it, payment, as well as at the end of 2024, they will get their 100 billion back to them. So this is the concept of sukuk. Now, it has a structure. There are two types, asset back. This is the purest, what they call a form of sukuk. Investors have recourse to the underlying asset in the event the borrower cannot repay. So if there's a danger tomorrow, so please, when you are putting money in sukuk, you must be sure that whether it's asset-backed or asset-based. The federal government sukuk, or most of the sukuk we find today, 90% of them are asset-based. And the danger there is, if there's a problem, you don't have asset to the underlying asset. So if you live in what they call it in America, and then you put your money in a sukuk in a third world country or somewhere there, and the sukuk is asset-based, you run into a problem, because if the company or individual default or run into bankruptcy or liquidation, there's no way you can get your money. So please, when you put money there, make sure it is asset-backed, not asset-based. Now, let's move to the third part of my presentation, which is mutual fund. You are familiar with all this in America. You have HSBC, Sukuk Fund, you have Amana Participation Fund, you have Wide Invest, you have Iman Fund, and then in Nigeria, you have Norebaga Islamic Fund. So I don't need to go into all this. You have many options here and there. There's one application which I really want to flag to your attention here. They call it Islamically app. So if you're interested in equity anywhere in the world, you can just download this app, pay monthly rent, what they call it, fees or year. It's a one-stop destination that can help investors manage their investment in the Sharia compliant manner. So you go to any country, you can see here is Argentina. From the slide, you can choose any country that you feel you want to buy their stock here and there. So what these people have done is they've gone through each of these stocks available in those countries, and then they've identified those that are Sharia compatible. They didn't tell us the criteria they use, but we just have to believe them. So if you're really interested in what they call it, Sharia compliant investment anywhere in the world, this is a good application that you can really download and use. Now, your shares have tumbled. You participate in the share. The question there is, what do? You sell or buy even more? Now, well, it's $1 million question that everybody who has been buying stock, halal stock, when the stock falls, 3 choices are made. One, either you buy more, do nothing, or sell. So there's no clear right answers. It all depends, but you can work out why the investment is failing. So if you think there are some underlying reasons, you have to take action. You don't need to panic or be driven by emotion when the price falls. You don't need to put off making a decision, because the longer you take to make a decision, the more you are losing money, and you don't want that to happen. So from the Mail of UK, 5th of September, I saw that they have a very beautiful write-up there. They say there are 5 warning signals to consider if you fall into this situation where your shares are falling. So they say, is the company losing customers? So you have to check whether people are running away from the company. If you see rush, that people are just trying to come out of the company, maybe they have some signals or inside information, you need to take decisions as soon as possible. And then second question you need to ask yourself, or warning signs, how are these competitors faring? So if the competitors are also doing bad, so it's giving you a signal that you need also to go out. What is happening to the directors? Are they selling or buying? Is it a short-term blip or long-term trend? And lastly, how is the company responding? So if the company is announcing that we're taking action, and you feel that they're convinced that they're really taking action, you may keep your stock or take action. So these are just a tip of what you're likely, when you put money and the stock is going down, it's individuals' responsibility to know what to do. Now, let me take you through some of the conclusions of my presentation today. Number one, we know that Islam encourages redistribution of wealth. So that means those who have the resources, you saw the concept of zakah, sadaqah, awqaf, or the essence is just to redistribute resources so that the poor, those who have, can support those who don't have. So in what they call it, investment too, you need to redistribute to wealth. Islam does not allow you to keep your wealth idle. You really need to put your investment into active, what they call it, activities. So now, and capital market provides a unique opportunity for Muslims to transition from being spectators to becoming active players in the modern financial world. So really, we live in 21st century, and most of you live in America. You really want to put your pension, you want to put your hand income into productive use, and then capital market, especially Islamic capital market, provide you a unique opportunity to become active players in the modern financial world. Now, by investing in Islamic shares and bonds, which are the key activities of capital market, Muslims are able to earn decent income or grow their wealth in an aligned way while recognizing the risks inherent in investing in such market. Stock market could spur a dangerous emotion, and once addicted to it, could affect concentration in the buyer khushu. Investors therefore miss emotional balance. You know, if you're the person who every second you check your stock here and there, you know what it means? It means you lose your khushu, ability to really concentrate in prayer. I've seen brothers who participate in Tadawu, in the, what do you call it, Saudi stock. And when it's time for prayer, you see the guy sitting there looking, I say, brother, what is happening? He said, wallahi, the stock went down. I'm really disturbed. I want my emotion to go down before I can really go for prayer. So these are the kind of things you really need to guard against, because if you are thinking about your stock, and then you really need to, you cannot stand before your creator and then be thinking about dunya, so you have to draw a line between being addicted to stock prices and managing your religion or deen with your creator. The two other points I have, we have this different Sharia board making a lot of pronouncement on permissibility of investment in the stock of some companies, but there's no uniform or consistent methodologies or standard to help or guide Muslim investors living in different jurisdictions or any part of the world. Well, despite divergent opinions by Sharia board, many areas of Sharias and bonds still need further research and clearance as more innovative products emerge in capital market. We have this crypto, for instance. A lot of scholars are really saying yes or no until we get to the root of finally when pronouncements are made by maybe OIC, Fiqh Academy, or reputable institutions. As we move from left and right, many different pronouncements are being made, so we are lost. So we still need more clearance and research going forward. And lastly, if you're into sukuk, shares, investment, and you don't have time. So you really need to subscribe to investment newsletters. Some of them are available in America to help address general security topics, explain the quality of different types of stock, bonds, funds, and suggesting why they might be attractive. So really, you have some companies that are really supporting you in terms of which stock, what to do, when to come out, when to increase your, shares or stocks, and so on and so forth. So you can concentrate on your activities and subscribe to these newsletters to guide you going forward. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Barakatuh. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan for that beautiful expository lecture. Inshallah, we have so many questions on the chat. I believe we have a few minutes to quickly address some of the questions before we take in the next lecturer, inshallah. Just give me a second. I would want us to address one of the questions. Is from a brother. He says, for a small business owner, not big enough to raise money from the market, not in a line of business suitable for crowdfunding, but too big to rely on family and friends to raise capital. I think this is for the first lecturer. Borrowing money from the banks seems to be the only avenue available. How can one navigate this, knowing fully well that one has to pay interest on these loans? That's one question. And let me quickly read the second one. You can answer them one after the other. The second one is also from a brother. It says, if halal investment discourages speculations, then investment in halal stock will be haram because buying shares is based on speculation that the share value will appreciate. Please clarify. Jazakallah khairan.
Question is about small loans for a small business. You have Islamic banks, so you don't really to go to conventional bank, talk about interest. There's no question about interest in this issue here, unless where you live, you don't have Islamic banks or what do you call it, investment funds that can really support you. But we live in 21st century, you don't need to really be in America to get loan from any part of the world, as long as you have collateral to really. So the first question, if I have to answer it clearly, you don't really worried about going to a conventional bank if you feel your crowdfunding is not working. Because if you have a good product and then you are convinced that if you go to the market, people will put money there in crowdfunding, you can go to Kickstart. Many of them there, you describe what you are trying to do, people put money there, and then there are many ways to get the money back one way or the other. So please, we have Islamic banks. So try to explore Islamic bank instead of thinking about all these conventional approaches. Second one is that the shares, well, as I said before, speculation is one of the issues. Prohibition of ban on speculation is one of the principles of Sharia. And, shares is about speculation. We have to face the reality. But the scholars over the time says, they say, you have to be part of this global family, yes or no? So you cannot say you have options. Either you are not part of the shares, and then you go for fixed income, what do you call it, opportunity like sukuk, you don't need to be, it's not compulsory that you have to participate in sukuk if you feel you're not convinced. But scholars over the years felt that, well, we should not be spectators. We have to be part and parcel of the global, what do you call it, opportunities. They come up with all the rules and regulations, what have you. But every day, as I mentioned to you, just a small problem in Greece, you see that the US stock was going down, or earthquakes, misfortune happening to someone elsewhere in the world, stock is appreciating. So more or less speculation. So it all depends on individual. If you feel your iman is strong that, well, you don't need to participate because you're convinced speculation, well, good. Those who want to invest in sukuk, they say, well, Sharia scholars have said there's nothing bad about it as long as you focus on those that are halal. And then they came up with all these criteria in terms of financial indicators, and then they've screened them out, and they feel. So if you want to close your eyes from that dimension, it's left for you individually. But you have options. Nobody is forcing you to go for shares or stock, whatever.
Jazakallah khairan for that answers. May Allah continue to reward you in abundance and increase you in knowledge, sir. And someone also asked, what is the impact of security challenges in Nigeria on investment? And we still have other questions, but we still have the third lecturer. So I would call on Sister Kafaya Aminu to take it from here, inshallah.
Maybe, sister, sorry for that. Let's take maybe, we've already, inshallah, the next speaker will be waiting for a few more minutes, inshallah. If you take maybe a couple of more questions, inshallah.
All right, Jazakallah khairan. So we have a question here. What is the impact of security challenges in Nigeria on investment? And I think you already mentioned that among many questions, but also in America.
Yeah, so I'm in the country, and I can tell you, Jais Bank, all these Islamic products, they're making a lot of income despite all the challenges in terms of movement, in terms of, giving loans to farmers, because you give loan to farmers, they cannot go to the farm, or you give them money earlier, and now they have these challenges here and there. So in terms of, what do you call it, putting money in mutual funds in Nigeria, I think They've been doing well. A few weeks ago, I was a guest speaker for the United Capital, where they have the second launch of their Sukuk fund. I think it was oversubscribed. So in terms of the investment climate in Nigeria, I think the security is not really impacting what they call investment to a great extent. I mean, the fear is there, and these are the issues we keep on also talking an organization, because you need staff to move from one place to another in terms of following up on project here and there. Security is a major concern. So in terms of, you know, when you talk about investment in the country, you have this estate, I mean, housing is booming in Abuja. I mean, I've seen investors coming from Saudi Arabia here. They call them Tahil. They have a lot of properties here that, and this is the right time to really invest in Nigeria, because the exchange rate is, to many of you, what they call it, great opportunity, because if you look at dollar to naira today, I think you're better off buying property in the country. From equity also is going down to a certain extent, but I don't know if you really want them to. There are a lot of funds in Nigeria here that are Islamic. I know of Norebaga Islamic Fund, I know of Capital, I know of Lotus Capital too, I know of what do you call it, Burak. So a lot of Islamic, what do you call it, I mean, investment opportunities are here. If you really want me to share those with you any moment, I can send my email to you. But so security is there. I cannot tell you that, I cannot lie to you, security is there, but because most of us fly from one place to another, we don't see it really. But we are concerned about security by people moving from one place to another. So there's nothing to lie. Security is a major concern. And then as we are heading for what you call it, election in 2023, so it heightens all this insecurity as well, because politicians, they groom their, what you call it, thugs or followers, and then create more panic all over the place. So security concern is there if you want to invest, but you know, when you have insecurities, when you make a lot of money, and this is the lesson I learned from my colleagues who have been investing in all countries like Somalia, what have you. So this is what I can
say. Yeah, we'll take one more question. A very good friend of mine here asked, must all components of the ETF be disclosed for it to be halal?
Well, as you know, ETF are the constituent of an index. So it's your right to find out that, look, I mean, you say S&P 500, or if I decide to call, like you saw the OIC 50 Sharia index, who are these companies, you're right to know. This is the essence of saying in Islam, Garar, you should avoid all this uncertainty. So avoid all this. If we really want to invest in any index, what do you call it, funds or ETF, it's your right to find out from Islamic perspective. You need all this transparency, you need all this full information to decide which of them are you really convinced that they are halal or not. But you know, why do you have to bother yourself when there's a Sharia board that should have all these responsibilities? They told you that this is halal. So why do you have to go one by one and say, I want to do it again myself? If there are any wrong, Allah knows how to handle them. So this is only advice I will give to you.
One last one. I'll make two questions together. Someone says, where do crowdfunders meet, and how do you meet a fellow crowdfunder? Number one. Then also someone said, for those who would like to invest in Sukuk, is there a way you can help to facilitate obtaining and submitting the form?
Oh. Okay. Yeah, these are two questions here. Crowdfunding, I mean, if you go to Singapore, Malaysia, just go to their website. They have Islamic crowdfunding if you don't want to use crowdfunding in America. So I can tell you have those opportunities. You have Kickstart. You have, I mean, the list is all, just go to Google and say crowdfunding platform. You have a lot of all these things there. You can just focus. We live in the world, information is, we have a lot of information overload. So don't worry, just go to internet crowdfunding, choose among them. They have histories, they have background, they will tell you their success stories and what have you. So that's number one. The second one is Sukuk. We have all these mutual funds I'm talking about in Nigeria here, 70% of their money is put in Sukuk. So Norebaga Islamic Fund, Lotus Capital, United Capital. These are all, I can list up to 10 of them for you if you really want to participate in that Sukuk in Nigeria. So you don't need to bother yourself. Most of these mutual fund is 5,000 naira you can invest minimum. So if you want the list, I can compile them forward to you. I mean, you can choose. And if you have someone locally here, they can really assist you. So you can even do some of their websites. You download the form, fill it up, transfer money to them. You know, we live in the digital world. Everything is possible. You don't have to be in Nigeria to do all these things.
Jazakallah khairan kathiran for this beautiful presentation. One last request. One of our brothers is asking if you could share your slides with us, and you can send it to one of the organizers, and inshallah they would send it to the community. Jazakallah khairan. And now I want to call on the Imam Dr. Adeshokon, to please make dua for our lecturer. Imam Abdurrahman Adeshokon.
I think he's trying to unmute himself. Maybe Dr. Abdelik can do that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Jazakumullah khairan, Dr. Abdul Latif Bello. We pray to Allah to accept all this effort from you as Ibadah. We pray to Allah to give you long life, and you and all our brothers that are working in this field. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for today's contributions. We thank Jazakumullah khairan. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا وأخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملت على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وسلم.
Jazakallah khairan. Just to add that you know, it's part of our practice to give a token of appreciation to our guest speakers. If you were in person as well, virtual right now, inshallah, we will be reaching out to you, Dr. Bello, inshallah, to show you our appreciation, inshallah, for this. Jazakumullah khairan. And inshallah, if you don't mind, you can share me the slides, and I will share with the people, the community members. Jazakumullah khairan.
People are also requesting for his email address. Please, if you can put that in the chat for us, Dr. Bello, we would really appreciate that.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. I will do that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum.
So I'll go ahead and call on Sister Kafaya Aminu to take over from here for the next session. Jazakallah khairan kathira. Sister Kafaya Aminu.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Habib. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Can you see me clearly and can you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm using two devices, so please forgive me. Subhanallah, as Allah would have it, my computer decided to shut off just before my segment. So alhamdulillah, it's working out. So inshallah, we're going to continue on with this very important conversation. But before I introduce our next speaker, I'm going to call on our beautiful sister Nusaiba Abdul Wahab to please give us a recitation from the Holy Quran. Sister Nusaiba, where are you? Is she around?
Yes, she is. Sister Nusaiba, you can unmute yourself.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا بني آدم خذوا زينتكم عند كل مسجد وكلوا واشربوا ولا تسرفوا إنه لا يحب المسرفين قل من حرم زينة الله التي أخرج لعبادته والطيبات من الرزق قل هي للذين آمنوا في الحياة الدنيا خالصة يوم القيامة كذلك نفصل الآيات لقوم يعلمون قل إنما حرم ربي الفواحش ما ظهر منها وما بطن والإثم والبغي بغير الحق وأن تشركوا بالله ما لم ينزل به سلطانا وأن تقولوا على الله ما لا تعلمون ولكل أمة أجل فإذا جاء أجلها لا يستأخرون ساعة ولا يستقدمون يا بني آدم إما يأتينكم رسل منكم يقصون عليكم آياتي فمن اتقى وأصلح فلا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون صدق الله العظيم.
Allahu Akbar. Thank you so much for the beautiful recitation, Stand Saber. May Almighty Allah continue to increase you in knowledge and iman. Amen.
She will do the translation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead. Can you please unmute Sister Nusaiba? Sister Nusaiba, we can't hear you. Dr. Abdul-Jalil, can you please unmute her?
Yes, she can unmute herself now, inshallah.
Okay, assalamu alaikum.
Excellent.
O children of Adam, take your adornment by wearing your clean clothes while praying and going around the tawaf of the Kaaba, and eat and drink, but waste not by extravagance. Certainly He, Allah, likes not al-musrifin, those who waste by extravagance. Say, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who has forbidden the adornment with clothes given by Allah, which He has produced for His slaves, and at-tayyibat, all kinds of halal lawful things of food. Say, there are in the life of this world for those who believe, and exclusively for them believers, and the day of resurrection. The disbelievers will not share them. Thus we explain the ayats, Islamic laws in detail for people who have knowledge. Say, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but the things that my Lord has indeed forbidden are al-fawahish, great evil sins, and every kind of unlawful sexual intercourse, whether committed openly or secretly, sins of all kinds, unrighteous oppression, joining partners in worship with Allah for which He has given no authority, and saying things about Allah of which you have no knowledge. And every nation has its appointed term. When their term comes, neither can they delay it, nor can they advance it an hour or a moment. O children of Adam, if there comes to you a messenger from among you reciting to you my verses, then whoever becomes pious and righteous, on them shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve.
Thank you so much. Jazakallah khairan, Sister Nusaiba. Thank you so much for the beautiful recitation and the translation. May Almighty Allah again continue to increase in knowledge and iman. Amen. All right, so next we're going to introduce our speaker. His name is Mr. Mumineen Salam, and inshallah he's going to be speaking on Islamic stock market investment options in the United States. So for the benefit of those who would like to read his bio, we Dr. Abdul Jalil already posted that in the chat because we don't have much time. But very quickly, I'm just going to state that as a mark of recognition for his achievements in Islamic economy, Mr. Mumineen was ranked among 500 of the Islamic world's most prominent and influential leaders by Islamic 500 in 2015. My brothers and sisters in Islam, my mothers and fathers, please welcome Mr. Mumineen Salam.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Kafiyat and Abdul Jalil for having me on here. Inshallah, everybody can hear me okay. So with that, Assalamu alaikum, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. In the name of Allah, all praise is due to Allah. Prayers and blessings be upon His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that I can make my presentation, inshallah. And if you have a problem seeing this, please do let me know. As the sister mentioned, inshallah, my presentation today, this is only a little bit part of it. This is part of a larger presentation that we do at the Amana Mutual Funds, and we have representatives across the country that actually go to various masajid and conferences and those type of things. In fact, we have one representative in Texas that I think I know most people on this call might be in Houston. So in my presentation, inshallah, as a sister mentioned, I'm going to be talking a little bit about specifically Islamic investing, but more maybe relevant, inshallah, to what's going on in the US. And I'm going to start off talking a little bit about the history of Islamic investing as well. So you can contextualize, inshallah, where this entire industry is coming from. Now, whenever we talk about the stock market, and those things, it's really important to remember.
Sorry for interrupting you, Ramoni.
Yeah,
maybe you want to put it on a full screen, just so it's more clear.
Sure.
Inshallah, thank you.
How's that?
That's better.
Awesome. As investments can go up and down, and so you can either make money or lose money. So it's important for us to be always be able to talk about that. So when it comes to in Islamic investing, we have to go back a little bit. So back in the 1980s, there were scholars that were coming out at the time, based in multiple parts of the world, that were being asked a question about the stock market. And majority of them, not all, majority of them were saying, no, the stock market is not something that's allowed and not allowed. And the reason why is because they were looking at the modern form of a corporation. And they were saying, well, there's nothing in Islam or nothing in fiqh that talks about this idea of a corporation and that having no liability to its owners, right? It's a separate organization. And so they couldn't really wrap their heads around it. And then they were also talked about the fact that, maybe there's speculation in the stock market and that's why it wouldn't be allowed. But there are other scholars, particularly from Southeast Asia and Malaysia more in particular, that actually, had begun doing Islamic investing back in 1969 with the creation of the Hajj fund in Malaysia called Tabung Haji. So there was a debate, but in general speaking, in about 1984, here in the US, there were a group of Muslims who were based in Indianapolis, Indiana, most of them, and they were with the North American Islamic Trust, and they basically started an investment club for making investments in the stock market. They didn't know how to, and the demand grew very quickly, and they didn't know exactly what to do. So they went to a local investment professional company called Unified Asset Management, and they helped them to create the first Islamic fund in the US called the Amana Mutual Funds. Okay, and so kind of talking a little bit, the first criteria that were used, right, were primarily based on just the original kind of like, whatever businesses you're involved with, as long as those are not haram, then you could invest in them. Now, if I want you to think about this idea of Islamic investing as twofold. Number one is, as the scholars became more knowledgeable about the field, right, they began to make more opinions about what's allowed, what's not allowed. Number two, as technology improved, it helped the scholars to be able to use some of the data to be able to also figure out what's allowed, what's not allowed. So for example, later on, back in 1997, you have, back up a little bit. So in 1980s, you had scholars that said, as long as the company is not in business or an industry that is haram, then it's okay. And there was no talk about whether or not you would have any financial ratios or those type of things. Now, why is it that Islamic investing is allowed? Now, generally speaking, the scholars came to the opinion that if the Muslims don't participate in the investment economy in the stock market, then because of inflation, they are going to lose out on being able to increase their wealth. Okay. Now, this in the category of fiqh is called haja. Haja means a general need. Now, if, for example, particularly if you decide, what, I don't want to do is anything which is not, has no tainting whatsoever, then the stock market obviously would not be for you. But that's not realistic living in our age. So that's how the scholars allowed Islamic investing to happen. Also, one of the key issues, things that happened is that there was a scholar by the name of Justice Muhammad Taqi Usmani from Pakistan, and he came up with an opinion which basically said that the corporation is like a musharaka or a partnership, right? And even though there is no direct tie to liabilities, and a corporation is a specific entity in and of itself, he said there is an Islamic basis in that legal structure, and that is in the form of a waqf or a endowment. So combining all of these things, scholars made ijtihad, and they came up with this idea that the corporation would be allowed because there's a hajah that Muslims need to make investments in the stock market. They said, yes, you can do it, but there are going to be restrictions. And so the first restrictions were that you couldn't invest in an industry which was haram. Now, fast forward to 1997, and there's a common a group of scholars from all over the world came together, and they were employed by the Dow Jones Islamic Indices, with a good friend of mine working there by the name of Rushdie Siddiqui. So he brought all the scholars together, and they came up with the first guidelines that were basically not only on the industry level, but also on the financial level. Okay, and I'll get into that a little bit later. So that's and during that time in 1997, it became a lot easier for companies to publish their financial statements, but also not only that, for management companies, investment management companies, to be able to parse through those financial statements and come up with some ratios, financial ratios, and those type of things. If you were making investments in the late 80s, early 90s, you remember that all of the information would have to be mailed to you. You would have to hand calculate all of the answers, and then you would have to do that. Now, doing that on 5,000 companies in the US or 10,000 companies in the world obviously becomes a little bit onerous, right? And so that's why when technology caught up and you could just download this information, it became a lot easier to be able to do. So what is this criteria that we're actually talking about? As I mentioned to you, that I work for a company called Saturna Capital, and there are other companies that are out there. I think Dr. Billow mentioned a few of them that are available in the US. There's the Iman Fund, there is Azad, there is Sharia portfolios, and there's Wahid. So there are others out there. We are the oldest and largest, started in 1986. Now, all of these companies use Sharia advisors. They're almost like independent consultants, like you would hire an accounting firm to do an independent audit of your books. You would hire a Sharia firm to be able to do an independent audit of your screens and of your portfolio. And then on a yearly basis, they sign off and they say, yes, according to the criteria, this company, in this particular case, the amount of mutual funds, does meet the Islamic criteria. Okay, now the criteria might be different. Okay, so for example, Azad might be a little bit different than ourselves, might be different than Wahid, might be different than Sharia portfolio. There might be differences, but the differences are in the margins and they're not in the core. And that's the nature of ijtihad. So what are these criteria that I'm talking about, right? The first set of criteria having to do with, as I mentioned, the business screens, means that that you're not investing in companies whose primary business is in interest, riba, like banking and insurance, no alcohol, tobacco, gambling, pork products, pornography, everything that we know that would be something that's haram in Islam. The company would not be investing in either. Okay. Now the second set of criteria that came in was on the financial screens, right? And now you think about it and say, well, why are these screens here? And the reason is because if you think about it anecdotally, right? When we first came up with our screens, right? The first scholar came up and says, you know what? Debt in Islam is not good. And the company, if they borrow money, they're going to have to pay interest. So I don't want any company in my portfolio that has any debt whatsoever. So we said, okay, let's go back to the major index at the time, which was the S&P 500. And let's try to find out how many companies that are there that have no debt. So out of the 500, there were 50 companies that came about and that had no debt whatsoever, which is good. So then another scholar said, yes, debt is not good and I don't want that. But also, if a company has cash on their balance sheet, then that's not good either, because they're going to be collecting interest on their balance sheet and they're going to be collecting interest. So that's not good either. So I want a company that has no cash. So how many companies, do you think in the market that are publicly traded have no cash in the banks and they borrow no money from anybody else? There's none. And so you have to, in order for us to be able to scholars to facilitate Muslims investing in the market, they had to come up with thresholds as to why these things are there. Okay. Now, the financial screening comes with 3 different categories. Number 1 is the total debt of a company divided by the 12-month trailing market cap. Market cap means the value of the company itself has to be less than 33%. Okay. Now, remember I mentioned to you in the beginning or a little bit earlier that there might be some differences of opinion as to what these criteria are. Nobody will argue, no scholar will argue that the business screens are something that should be debated. Everybody agrees we shouldn't be buying companies and alcohol. We shouldn't be buying gambling companies. We shouldn't be buying banks, those type of things. Where the differences come in are in the financial screens. And even in the financial screens, the 33% might be like 30%. So that difference. And then rather than market capitalization, they might use assets, right? Total assets, or they might use another criteria to value a company. Now, this difference, if you're a finance major, the value of a company is something that's debated in finance as well. It's not something that the scholars are debating only. There's debate in finance, whether it's a market cap, is it enterprise value, is it total assets, what is the true worth of a company? So again, those are where the differences of opinion come from. And then the second one has to do with, how much cash is on the balance sheet of a company. So we use a criteria called it's 45% accounts receivables to total assets. And then the last one is basically a haram revenue screen that basically says any ancillary revenue that comes either from money in the bank account that's earning some money, right? They might have a secondary business or tertiary business that may be involved in something that's haram. That would be something that was there. Okay, now, best way to explain this would be to give you an example, right? So let's supposing that we had in our company, and one of our analysts said, you know what, before I even do any research on a company, let me find out if Southwest Airlines is halal or not. So first you look at the business screens and you say, are they involved in anything haram? Are they involved in a business of interest or alcohol or gambling or pork? And you say, no, they're involved in transportation. And transportation in and of itself is inherently halal. So it would pass the business screen. Then you come to the financial ratios and you find out from Southwest Airlines how much debt they have on their balance sheet. And you look at it and say, well, they lease their planes. They don't have any debt. So that would be acceptable. Then accounts receivables, total assets. As you know, when you buy an airline ticket, you don't give the company a Southwest Airlines IOU, meaning that, oh yeah, let me fly now and I'll pay you back in 6 months. That doesn't happen. So they don't have very large accounts receivables. But when you come to the last criteria, which is the 5% haram revenues, as you know, if you've traveled on Southwest Airlines, they do sell alcohol on their planes. So there is some revenue that they get from alcohol. And if they had money in the bank account, that would be earning, at least nowadays, is probably zero. But in most normal times, there would be some interest that's gained from the money in the bank. So all of these things are come about, and then they say, how much is it? You total it all up. And in the case of Southwest Airlines, it's really negligible. It's like less than 0.05%. So definitely less than the criteria that's there. Now, some people ask, where did these criteria? Why is it 33%? Why not 50% or 75% or 10%? So there is a really good book. It's called Introduction to Islamic Finance. And in chapter 12 of that book, the author, Justice Muhammad Taqi Usmani, actually goes over the criteria as to why these things were created. Okay. There are also websites that are available that you can download this information from. So please do look this up. But generally speaking, right, there are hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. For example, in one of them, Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas basically was on his deathbed, and he said, he has had a lot of wealth, and he had only one daughter to survive him. And so he asked the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Ya Rasulullah, is it okay for me to give all of my wealth away before I die? And the Prophet said, no. He said, can I give half of my wealth away? And the Prophet said, no. And he said, can I give a third of it away? And the Prophet ﷺ said, yes, but less is better. Right? And then he went on to say that leaving your offspring or your dependents, right, independent is better than leaving them dependent on the community after you pass away. Now, that being said, if you look at this idea of 33% but less is better, that becomes a hukum, it becomes a ruling. And so you can apply these to other things as well. And so in this particular case, the scholars applied them to this criteria here. Now, I'm not a scholar, right? So there might be other reasons why they said okay, but I'm just kind of relating to you the message of why that's done. Now, and when it comes to the second criteria, which is the accounts receivables, in Hanafi fiqh, the majority of something takes on the characteristics of the whole. So in this particular case, if you had a company that was trading at 51% cash or 51% accounts receivables, it would take on the majority of the whole, which is basically becomes a cash company. And a cash company cannot be traded for a premium or a discount because that becomes riba. And so just to give a little bit of cushion, we decided to use 45% rather than 50%. The last one, which is the 5% haram revenues, that is the only one that probably in somewhere in fiqh, there's no exact percentage of it. However, the scholars used an analogy and they said, what is it, for example, what is it that enough of a percentage is there that it changes the inherent characteristic of the company so it's no longer doing what it's supposed to be doing, right? Is it 5%? Is it 10%? Is it more or is it less? And that's where the differences come in. And that kind of comes from, if you know, in fiqh also in the Bab al-Tahara, which is the chapter on purification or being purified, like wudu, right? Can you make wudu in a pond, right, in the middle of a jungle? Well, the animals might come and they might defecate there, they might drink from there, so there might be najis, but can you do that? And the scholars have come up with criteria, right? Basically, the idea is if the pond doesn't lose its inherent nature, does it smell, does it look clean, all of those things, then as long as it does that, then it would be acceptable. And the same thing, they allied, again, using ijtihad, they applied that to the company screens, and they said as long as the company doesn't lose its inherent characteristics of what industry it's in, then it would be something that's allowed. Okay, so that's kind of the criteria that we have. And this was something that was set up in 1997 or thereabouts. And then we've been using this criteria in our industry for a long period of time, meaning up until now, the criteria, mashallah, is still being used. And they're really, like I said, there's no difference of opinion. The differences are very minor, and they're very major. So important thing to remember is that when you're investing in the stock market, or you're buying into investment companies that invest for you, it doesn't really matter that much as to what Sharia criteria they use, because they're all very similar. What it does matter, however, is that are the Sharia criteria audited by an independent financial firm, independent Sharia advisor firm? Just like when you want to invest, you will say, hey, are you being independently monitored for and audited on your financials? Right? For example, do you have KPMG or do you have Ernst & Young or some other independent firm that's auditing you to make sure that my money doesn't go away? Similarly, you should be asking the question, is the company being independently audited on the Sharia so that my money isn't involved in something that is haram? Okay. So all of these criteria that I've talked about is something that has always been in the category of forbidding evil. When you ask what is Islamic investment criteria, you basically say, oh, we don't invest in this, we don't invest in this, we don't invest in this. So it's basically in the nahi anil munkar part of the criteria, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, He says, you are the best of a nation raised for the good of mankind, right? Antum khairukum bin nas ya'muruna bil ma'ruf wa nahi anil munkar وَتُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ. That you enjoin in the good and you forbid the evil and you believe in Allah. So all of these things that we've talked about so far in Islamic investing have all to do with forbidding evil. But now companies are beginning to also, again, because of technology, because of regulations, because of these things, companies are now beginning to also report on the good things they're doing when it comes to a certain criteria, and I'll get into those. And that might be in the criteria of amal bil ma'ruf, which is enjoining in the good. So Islamic, it's about time now, in my opinion, that Islamic investment criteria move in this direction of not only forbidding the evil, but also in the enjoining the good, because then obviously our money is being used towards something that's good. So what is this good that we're talking about, right? We're talking about good corporate governance. We're talking about good sustainability, which is the environmental part of it, right? As we know, we've had unprecedented amounts of fires, hurricanes, heat waves, all of these things all over the world. And this is something that we've done to ourselves. So how do companies now, what do they do to make at least a zero and not hurt the environment, if not make it even better? What are the social benefits? What are you doing for your workers to be able to benefit them? And what are you doing when it comes to governance as well, right? Equality in the workplace, but also in the governance of the actual organization itself. So in other words, in the common parlance of investments, these are called, excuse me, ESG criteria, environmental, social, and governance criteria. Okay. Now there is a basis in this before even these criteria came about. We can go back into the hadith and we can look at bases for being able to do these type of things. And unfortunately, maybe 20 years ago, that wasn't possible because the disclosures weren't being made, because technology wasn't able to give you this information, and because the scholars just didn't really have time to think about it. But now all of these things have changed and we can actually do that, right? So what do we have? We have basically if you want to look at, for example, water management, right? You have in the hadith narrated in Ibn Majah, you have the Messenger of Allah passed by Sa'ad when he said, you know, what is this extravagance? He was making wudu in the river, right? So you know, he said, what is this extravagance? And the Prophet ﷺ asked that, and Sa'ad responded back and said, can there be extravagance in ablution and wudu? Meaning that, can I really waste water even though I'm doing something for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He said, yes, even if you were on the bank of a river, right, with so much water that's there would be israf or extravagance in that, right? Next time we go make wudu on our faucets and we turn the knob all the way up, when we really only need a little bit, let's think about this also, not only from the investment perspective, but also within our own lives, right? But on the investment perspective, if there is this idea of water management, right, we have to look at companies and see what are they doing in regards to that. Now, before, you know, for example, if you take chip manufacturers, right, chips are ubiquitous in cell phones, in computers, and now they're coming up with the Internet of Things. So microchips or semiconductors are everywhere. So a chip semiconductor manufacturer, right, some of the larger ones end up using about 20,000 tons of water per year. A lot of them are based in California, where there are droughts and the water is running out. So it's important for us as investors to ask the question, you know, hey, Mr. So-and-so, you know, company so-and-so, what are you doing to not waste water? And so a lot of the semiconductor manufacturing companies now are being able to recycle the water that they use. And so they're not using any extra to be able to use that. So those are the types of questions we ask, right? When it comes to deforestation, if you look at it and say, well, you know, all of our houses are built on wood, the wood has to come from somewhere, right? And so obviously the trees are being, you know, cut down for us to be able to enjoy our houses. And so we have to ask the question, what are you doing to replenish or replace the trees that you're using to build the houses? And so here we have the basis of that. In Anas also reported that the Prophet ﷺ said, if a Muslim plants a tree or sows seeds, and then a bird or a person or an animal eats from it, it is regarded as a charitable gift for him, right? But here you can take the opposite, that if we cut down all the trees and a person or an animal or a bird can't even eat from it or can't take benefit from it, is that going to be something that's a sin upon us? It's a question. So we have the right to, at least when we want to use our money in a positive way, to ask the companies that we're investing in to say, if you're using forests to be able to grow your business, what are you doing to replace the forest that you're burning down, the forest that you're cutting down, those type of things. Okay, and then on the social side, right? Basically, the Prophet ﷺ, again in Ibn Majah, you have Abdullah bin Umar, who said the Prophet ﷺ said, "Give the worker his wages before his sweat dries." Right? And so again, this comes into many different aspects of worker-employee relationships. It comes in the form of, for example, do you delay your payments for unnecessary reasons? Right? Do you have some other form of, like, for example, safety, right? For manufacturing companies, what is your safety record in amount of workers per 1,000, for example, that might get hurt by whatever you're doing? And then on the governance side, you have accountability, right? And this may be, this might be something that, could be an ijtihad or a qiyas or an analogy, where again, the Prophet ﷺ said, every one of you is a guardian or accountable for his charge. Thus, the Khalifa is kadama to the people, is responsible for them. The man is guardian over his household and is accountable for them. And the woman is in charge of the household and her children, and she is accountable for them. So if a board of directors is the custodian of the people's money, or as me, as a mutual fund manager, I'm a custodian over over the investors that I hold money for, then I'm going to be held accountable for them. And so I'm going to make sure that the accounting, the auditing, all of those things are being done in a right way, and they're being done in a transparent way, right? And transparency is very important. Part of the hadith, part of the ayah, we have the largest or the longest ayah in the Quran, which starts off, "O you who believe, when you deal with each other in transactions involving future obligations in a fixed period of time, reduce them to writing," right? Let a scribe write down faithfully between the two parties. So this is part of it, has to do with the idea of writing it down, means that's transparency, not only between you and your counterparty, but also between everybody else that's there as well. Because once you write it down and there's a price that's set and that's fixed, other people can use that to be able to come up with a market value for something else. It's transparency. So again, governance has to do with transparency, all of these things. So in the Amana funds, right, we have, alhamdulillah, since 2015, not only incorporated the Nahi anil Munkar of the Islamic investing, but also in the Amr bil Ma'ruf, where we've come up with criteria for environmental, social, and governance screens to be able to take a look at those. Right. So I think it's important for us to be able to do that. Just one second before okay, sorry. Okay. So now, how much, can somebody tell me just exactly how much time I have really quickly?
About 2 more minutes.
Oh, I'll just stop here then. I'll just basically cover just a couple of more things that in this. Let me just kind of exit out. I'll scroll down a bit and talk a little bit about the funds that we have. Now, as Dr. Billah mentioned, there are a lot of funds that are out there in the US, right? It's important to remember one thing, however, mashallah, I think he lives, my understanding is I think he's outside the US. One thing to keep in mind is that there are restrictions on US investors. So if you're a resident of the US, you're a citizen or green card holder, there are restrictions in what you can invest in outside of America. For example, the US government restricts you from investing in mutual funds outside the US. So you can invest in a mutual fund that invests outside the US, but you cannot invest in a mutual fund that is outside the US, right? It's a technicality there. But as I mentioned to you, there are others that are out there. Just one other thing that I wanted to mention is that, when you're talking about sukuk, Dr. Billah mentioned sukuk as well. There's only 3 companies out there that actually do manage sukuk. It's ourselves, it's Azad, and Sharia Portfolio. Okay. Wahid, somebody mentioned in the chat about Wahid offering sukuk. They do not offer sukuk. They actually use our fund to offer their clients sukuk portfolios. So anyway, so we have 4 basic funds. Each of them is listed here, and they're based on the order of how risky they are. So the riskiest is the Development World, fund, and the most conservative is the participation fund. All of these things are available on all platforms like Fidelity, Schwab, those type of things, or you can come directly to us and invest in an IRA for your retirement, for education, for all different purposes. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is if you work for a company and they have a 401k, there is possible for you to have access to our funds and other funds that are out there that are halal. All you have to do is ask your HR manager. And so if in the question and answer, if there's any questions about that, then I'll specifically get into it. So with that, inshallah, I will close here. I will open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Brother Monem. That I learned so much, subhanAllah. I've been taking notes, and I wish we could continue because I see you have more slides there. And
yes,
so,
I do. Yeah.
That takes me to the first question. So someone was asking in chat if you could share your slides with us.
That unfortunately is not going to be possible. So because I know it's being recorded, so inshallah maybe you can use the recording for that. The reason is because it's in the US. It's a very, very highly regulated industry, and so unfortunately we're not allowed to share the scars.
You're frozen, sir. I think we have.
Sorry.
Okay. You were frozen for a bit, so I guess the takeaway there is you're not able to share your.
Yes,
slide.
Unfortunately we're not.
Is now another. Okay. All right. Well, that answers the question. Sorry about that. I also just wanted to point out that one of our brothers shared some links with us in the chat. I think I want to believe that's let's see, App Store. I think it's about the so FIKKR app, Islamic Economics and Finance Knowledge app. So if you want to download those apps, I guess that would be very helpful. All right. So does anybody have any questions? Because I don't see any other question in the chat. So while they're trying to type their question, also if you want to say it out, if you want to speak, just signify by raising your hands electronically. But I'm just going to ask this question. This is more of a personal one. So I had to sell my Nike shares. Okay, Sasha is raising her hand. So just one moment. So I had to sell my Nike shares because I learned about the fact that they were abusing people, right? In, I think it was China or some other country. So I guess my question is, how do we determine, because you gave us all this criteria, the things we need to look into and all that stuff, because it's not just about interest, we're talking about like ethics, so many values and all that. So how do we determine what companies to buy, their shares and all that kind of stuff? That's one. Two, if we continue to look at all these ethical values and some other issues or some other reasons that I had to sell some of my shares, we may end up not having any investments in this country. So what's your advice on that?
So thank you very much for the question. I think both of them are very important. So again, as I mentioned to you, there's a couple of kind of overall arching things you should think about. Number one is that do not confuse ahsan, right, with halal and haram. Okay, so the criteria I gave you in the very beginning, which was on the Islamic investing criteria of the screens and the financial ratios, that is a difference between halal and haram. Okay, once you know that they're halal, then if you do anything in regards to like what you mentioned about Nike, and that would be their social part of it, the social aspect of it, that what are they doing to be able to improve people's lives, those type of things, that falls in the criteria of ahsan, right? Now, everybody has different opinions of what that is. And so you have to come up with your own kind of set of criteria and say, you know what, these are the criteria I'm not going to compromise on. You might not have any criteria and you say, you know what, there's so many different opinions out there and I need to have investments. And so I'm only going to stick to what's halal and haram. And unfortunately, I'm not going to worry about it. Or you come up with your own criteria. What we've done at the Amana Funds is we have come up with our environmental, social, and governance criteria. Part of it has to do with, child labor or slave labor, those type of things. However, that being said, it's very, very important that you don't make investment decisions based on headlines. Okay, meaning that just because a group, an entity like a charitable organization or an organization comes out and says that Nike or Apple or blah, 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 blah is doing such and such, that doesn't mean that's 100% truth. Okay, you have to read their report. You have to read the response of the company to see what they're actually doing, because everybody has different interests that are at stake. Right? There might be a political reason why this organization is telling people that Nike is being involved in Xinjiang with the cotton production and those type of things. So you have to look into it. And unless you do that, then like you mentioned, you mentioned this, Kafayat, you can criteria yourself out of any investments that are out there. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. And Sister Shade Shomade Raji, please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question. Let's see. Let me see if I can unmute her. Sister Shade, do you still have a question? Okay. All right. So I'm going to call on Brother.
Okay, yes.
Oh,
I wasn't able to unmute myself. Can you hear me properly?
Yes.
Okay, so my question is, in the process of trying to be Islamically conscious and trying to do Islamic financing, I found that the Islamic banks or like investment banks for Islamic purposes are not very customer friendly. And this goes in all areas, trying to do educational funds, UTMA, and also like, you know, housing, getting loans for house, or very difficult to reach somebody. I don't know if that's, you know, everybody's experience, but you know, that's been my personal experience. What does the speaker have to say about that?
You know, I can't speak for everybody else. You know, we try our best, alhamdulillah, to be able to be available for anybody who calls us. We have information online that people can go to. Even as far as an account application, we can mail you one, you can download one, you can fill it out online, all of those things. What I can mention to you is that, you know, I hope that if you had a terrible experience from any of us in the field, that I would say I would hope that it would be a one-off, and to please forgive us and give us another chance. I don't know what else to say.
All right, thank you so much for the beautiful response. Next, I think we have Brother Ishala Adediran. Let's see, let me see if we can unmute him. I'm gonna ask you to unmute yourself. Brother Ishala, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Yeah, you did mention company 401k and the possibility of you know, being able to move your one's contribution over to maybe Amana funds. How do you go about that? Is it just what name is the fund known by, you know, the 401k administrator? You just call them up and say, hey, I'm interested in, you know, how do you get that conversation started? And, you know.
Thank you, Brother Shola, for the question. So basically, you know, there's a couple of things you can do before you even call them up. So number one is that, you know, you find out in your 401k, for example, if you have, who is your provider? For example, is it Fidelity? Is it Schwab? Or is it Vanguard? Those type of things. Many times, not always, but many times, they have an option. So for example, they have a list in the menu, they will have all the different funds that are available. And then will have one option, which is called a broker link, brokerage option in your 401k. If they allow you to do that, then you can check that, and they'll open you up a brokerage account within your 401k. And then through that, you will be able to purchase whatever you want to do, Amana funds, individual stocks, whatever you'd like to do. Okay, so that's number one. If you do not have that, then it's a matter of going to your human resources person and saying, look, I don't have an option to invest in the 401k, and I would like one. And you can do this based on the religious criteria. You can say, I'm not allowed to invest there. What can you do for me? And so you're putting the burden on them to be able to try to help you. Now, a lot of times they'll tell you, well, there's nothing we can do. So then if they do tell you that, then what I would tell you is if there's other Muslims that you have in the firm, or there are other people, other groups, for example, environmental groups, or other religious groups, those type of things that would maybe can help you to be able to get the HR, human resource people, to move on this area, that would be better. Now, that being said, we do have, and I'll put my email in the chat also, we do have form letters that you can, number one form letter we have is one that you can send to your HR department. And the second form letter that we have is one that you can have sent to all of your other friends and employee colleagues to help you to rally around getting this option for the brokerage. Okay, so you can actually do that, and you can go ahead and lobby your HR department to do that. Now, if you've already left the company, right, and you didn't have the option and whatever happened, remember, you can move the money from the 401k of your old company into a rollover IRA. There's no tax consequences for it, and you can choose your investments after that point. If your company doesn't match you, then it might be maybe better for you, because of the halal option, to not participate in the 401k altogether and open up an IRA, traditional IRA, and save taxes that way rather than through your 401k.
All right, thank you so much. So we have another question on the chat. What is the greatest hurdle for the growth of Islamic investment funds in the United States?
So I think there's a few of them. I think one of the things that we have to keep in mind is access to capital, right? Now, in a world where you can, the central banks can print as much money as they want, right? Relative to an Islamic an economy where money is limited to the assets of a certain geographic region or those type of things, right? It's important for us to realize that, although we're very, very competitive on the Islamic finance side, for example, very competitive on the profit rate that Islamic mortgage will charge versus an interest rate that a mortgage company will charge, there might be a little bit more expensive. But I get this question all the time. It's and I'm not in the field, so I can talk about this. I'm not in the mortgage field, but people all the time say, well, you know what? You guys gave me, or I found an Islamic company give me 2.25% profit rate, and I found somebody else who did 2%. I said, yes, but if you go, for example, to lendingtree.com and you put in all the rates, you're going to find people at 3%, 1.75%, 2.5%. So why are you only picking on us, which is the lower one, when there are also other companies out there that are doing higher? So we will be always within a range. Islamic finance will be always within a range of whatever is acceptable out there, right? So that's one part of it. The second part of it, I think that's important to remember, is that our challenge is marketability. Now, alhamdulillah, I've been in the US doing Islamic investments, mashallah, since 1995. I personally have visited over 700 masajid all over the country. And yet, every single time I go to a masjid or I go to a conference, I always come up with people that say, you know what, I've never heard of the amount of funds before. And they say, I didn't know there was such a thing as Islamic investing. So really, whatever you've learned today, inshallah, you'll benefit from it. But please, spread the word, right? That we do have, alhamdulillah, an example of, for example, in at least we can speak for ourselves, in the Amana Funds, which is a community-based fund that is $5 billion strong. Half of our investors are actually non-Muslims. And the reason is because they like our ethical criteria, they like our returns, all those different types of things. So spread the word amongst your friends, amongst your family, and do participate as well.
All right, thank you so much, Brother Monem. So technically we're out of time, but I see Sister Nurat Okewo raising a hand, so we'll probably take maybe one or two more questions, and that'll be it. So let me unmute Sister Nurat. One moment, Sister Nurat Okewo. Let's see. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. Please go ahead and do that and ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamu
alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Yeah, to my brother, my question is on based on the 401k that you mentioned about how to go through the HR, I want to find out what about 403B?
Okay. Can I ask you a quick question? Are you working for in the school district?
I work with the New York HAC.
Okay. So in a 403B is something very similar. Okay. Again, you're going to have an HR manager that you can go to, and you can ask them, or you can look at the options first and see if there's a brokerage option. If there's not that option, then you can go to your HR manager, and it would be the same procedure as a 401k.
But on 403B, we have the option of choosing the stock that we're buying.
Oh, if you have an option of choosing the stock, then just choose the amount of funds.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And if you have any questions, I put my email in the chat, and you can just email me.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Sister Kafir, there's a couple of questions I'd like to quickly answer that are on the chat, if you don't mind. Right? Okay. So the number one would be historically, how does a 401k perform against the conventional? As I just very briefly mentioned, you can go to our website and look at our returns. But our returns, alhamdulillah, have been at certain times the best returns in the country. And so that's why we do have, 50% of our investors are non-Muslim that are investing with us. So, compare it yourself. Don't trust me. Go out there, compare it to others that are out there. It's really difficult for me to say we've done better or we've done worse, because we do have 4 funds, and depend on your allocation that you make, you might have a different return than somebody else who had a different allocation. And then for those that are on 1099, right, you can open up your own 401k. You can open up what's called a SEP IRA, a self-employed pension IRA, right? And all these, the ones that I mentioned to you, are available on our website, which is basically, I'll type in right here, amanafunds.com. And all of these are available, all this information is available on our website. But again, if you have any questions, you can email me, and I'll direct you to the right person that can help you.
All right, thank you so much. And that concludes, let's see. Yes, that concludes the
Sister Kava, I just want, before we round up, I was communicating with Mumineen in the background, and he did mention something about some restrictions for US residents to actually invest in overseas mutual funds. This is basically picking from the previous lecture we had. Can you just explain that, Mumineen?
Yes.
What kind of restrictions are you talking about, please?
Yes, so thank you for that. So thanks for the question. So as I mentioned earlier, as US residents or citizens or resident or whatever it is, as long as you're living in the US and paying taxes, you are not allowed to invest in mutual funds that are based outside the US. That's not, it's like an IRS regulation. And so you can, for example, go and buy property, or you can, invest in somebody's business, but you cannot invest in specifically on mutual funds. And so I know the brother, Dr. Bilal, was mentioning about mutual funds in Nigeria and in Malaysia and those type of things. So it's probably better for you to buy a US fund that invests in Malaysia or in Nigeria, but going directly will become very, very problematic. The other thing that he mentioned also was that, you can go out and invest in sukuk. Now, majority of the sukuk that are out there have a minimum of, sometimes a lowest minimum I've seen personally is $50,000, but majority of them are at $250,000 to $500,000 minimum investment. So that's only for one sukuk. So you're not going to be able to diversify your portfolio. So it's better for you to invest in a sukuk fund rather than going out there and trying to buy individual sukuk that are out there.
All right, thank you so much, Brother Mumineen. And I see it looks like one of our sisters has an Amana specific, well, actually 2 questions. So, Dr. Abdul Jalil, do we still have time for questions?
Inshallah, let's take it a few minutes. Let's take it.
Yeah, I'm here as long as you guys need me. So,
all right. So one of our sisters was asking that if she invests, what is going to be our return and how soon can she get it?
Okay. Do you mind if I share my screen again really quickly?
Absolutely.
So basically, all of the things that I mentioned, So first of all, your money is liquid on the date. So when you make an investment, right? Let's supposing something happens and a month later you need to pull all the money out. The day that you call us is the day that we will sell your investments in that account. Now, depending on if you have a bank link with us or we need to send you a check or those type of things, it might take 2 or 3 days or maybe a week to get your money, right? But your investments are liquid at any point in time. And now speaking a little bit about our returns, this will give you an idea. Again, this is not something that's guaranteed. This could easily, if I put up, for a different set of dates, this could be negative or it could be positive, that type of thing. Or it could be lower, it could be higher. But this gives you a general idea of how we've done. So the 1 year, for example, in our growth fund, so last year, June 30th, till this year, June 30th, our income fund did 30%. Our growth fund did 42% or 43%. Our developing world did 33%, and our participation fund did 4%. Okay, so just kind of gives you an idea. So that.
All right, thank you so much. I don't see any more questions. The only thing I see is I think Brother Kala said that minimum amount to invest with Amana, as this was $500, no minimum basic.
Actually, yeah. So let me just clarify that. So the minimum actually lower than that. So if you open up a regular account, the minimum is $250. And if you have an IRA or an education account or those type of things, it's $100 minimum. And even if you don't have that, but you want to make an investment, like I said, we all started off as a community-based organization. Call us up, tell us that you need to invest maybe a little bit less, and we can make exceptions, inshallah.
Oh, wow, thank you so much, Brian. I took a lot of notes, if you can see. I took a lot of notes. I pray Allah makes it beneficial for us in this life and hereafter. I mean, I'm going to call on our Imam to please make dua and thank Brother Monem on behalf of the community. Imam Adeshakan, please go ahead, sir. Is our Imam still there? Okay, let me ask him to unmute himself. Imam, please unmute yourself, sir. Okay.
Thank you, brother. Jazakallah khairan. Barakallahu feekum. We really appreciate your contribution and we pray to Allah to accept it from you as ibadah.
Ameen.
ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم. Thank you. جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم.
Thank you.
Jazakumullah khairan. As I mentioned before,
okay.
Maybe Imam can mute, please. Let me mute him out. All right. So once again, Brother Monem Salam, we really appreciate Jazakallah khairan. By the way, for everybody's information, we reached out to Brother Salam, I would say probably within a few days, and mashallah tabarakallah, amongst his very busy schedule, he accepted our request. Even though it was a very, very short notice, very, very short notice. So we really appreciate it. And, it's our practice. If we were on site, we're giving you some token of appreciation, inshallah, we will be reaching out to you just to keep and, show appreciation for the time and the effort. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to count it on your scale of good deed.
Ameen.
And inshallah, we would like to continue this conversation and hopefully in the future, inshallah, we would like to, I know you're based in Seattle, somewhere in the Pacific side.
Pacific Northwest, correct.
Yeah, inshallah. Anytime you visit in this area, let us know. We'd like to really, have a more deep dive into this topic. I myself, personally, I'm very interested and we really want to start making concrete moves to, I've always been on the fence, looking around and just waiting, thinking everything is really shady and nothing is clear cut and never did anything. Honestly, want to take it to the next level. So inshallah, I'm sure a lot of my brothers and sisters are in the same shoes. So we'd like to continue this conversation, inshallah. And anytime you're in town or around the Texas area, let us know. And we can have even a face-to-face discussion, inshallah. So with this said, again, we thank you so much and jazakumullah khairan for your time.
Okay, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. So inshallah, thank you. So we really thank all our moderators, our Quran reciters, the Imam, and all our speakers, especially for this. And before we call it a day, we would like to call on the community leaders if there's any announcement. Oh, before that, before we call for the closing dua, which inshallah Dr. Abdul Rashid will be giving it to us. But we'd like to call on any of the community leaders. I don't know if Brother Femi Kende is on the platform, or any of the ESCO members or anyone that has relevant information for the community, please. The floor is open. We can give you a couple of minutes before we close the program today, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Of course, I'm not one of the community leaders, but I have a relevant information. I fall under the relevant information category.
Halas, inshallah.
Yeah, no, alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair for organizing this beautiful session. So we pray to Almighty Allah to accept it from you and from all of us as an act of worship. I mean, yeah, the relevant information that I have for everyone on this platform right now is that next Sunday, inshallah, is going to be Family Alaka. So, and alhamdulillah, I have a lot of breaking news. So, but I'll be breaking them on the platform. So, but most importantly, we are expecting a current serving senator from Nigeria to join us. And the Family Alaka, as we know, we have returned to on-site. So it's going to take place at the Masjid-ul multipurpose hall. So we want to encourage everybody that have been fascinated to please attend. And we have a couple of other programs, inshallah. Then we have, there is a special session, the tribute to Brother Shayo. We pray to Almighty Allah to forgive him. We pray to Almighty Allah to continue to sustain the entire families, both here in US and in Nigeria. So there is a special session for that. So, and I will be reaching out to some individuals because we know that we did a short form of that during the just concluded MBF, but the sisters were not opportune to give one or two things about what they know about their brother Shayo. So that is just the vital information that I want to pass across. Please take note, next Sunday, inshallah, is the last Sunday of the month. So we have a lot of benefiting programs that have been in the pipeline. So, and inshallah, everything will be okay for us. So pray to Almighty Allah to spare our lives beyond next Sunday. Yeah, Jazakumullahu khairan jazak.
Jazakumullahu khairan, Dr. Sharaf. Yes, Dr. And by the way, you are one of the leaders. If you don't accept that, which we understand, I've been humble, but you are one of the leaders.
I'm one of the servants.
Inshallah. Do we have any other announcement? Any other before we inshallah move to the closing dua for today? Okay. So if we do not have any other comment, inshallah, I'll call on Dr. Abdul Rashid Ibrahim to give us a closing dua, inshallah, for today's session. Dr. Abdul Rashid, please unmute yourself. Is he there? See. It's probably is there. Dr. Abdul Rashid, are you there? If not, I will call on someone else to do that for us, inshallah. Maybe I'll call on our elder, Alhaji Abdurrahman, if he can kindly give us a closing dua. Hello, sir. You can unmute yourself. Hello. Oh, okay. Looks like. Hello. So in that case, Rasharaf, so you just end it, inshallah. Fresh enough.
MashaAllah, tabarakallah.
So I'll turn it back to you. So give us closing dua, inshallah.
Okay. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulil Kareem. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا اكشف عنا العذاب إنا مؤمنون ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Inshallah, we'll look to see you again next weekend for Family Halakha, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. All have a good rest of the week, inshallah. Weekend. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.